As the great Buddha once reminded us, peace comes from within. Do not seek it without. Yet most of us live as if the opposite were true. We run through life chasing after success, possessions, and approval, believing that happiness is something we must earn from the outside world. And in that chase, we forget to live. We wake up feeling tired of the same routine, convinced that life is something to escape from rather than a gift to be embraced. But what if I told you that the life you are living right now already carries everything you've been searching for? What if joy, freedom, and peace were never missing? They were only hidden beneath the noise of your mind. Buddhism teaches us that transformation does not come when the world bends perfectly to our desires, but when our inner world learns to rest in clarity and awareness. In this video, you will discover 7 powerful lessons that can shift the way you see everything. If you allow these truths to reach your heart, you will look back and thank yourself for listening, because after this, life will never feel the same again. 1. Happiness is already here. From the time we are children, society plants in our minds the idea that happiness is something we must work for, something that comes only after we achieve certain milestones. We are told that if we study hard, get into a good school, secure a high-paying job, marry the right person, buy a big house, or travel the world, then we will finally feel complete. As a result, many people spend their entire lives chasing one thing after another, believing that the next achievement or the next possession will finally deliver the joy they have been waiting for. Yet when they reach those goals, the happiness they expected feels short-lived, and they quickly begin searching for something new to chase. This endless cycle of pursuit leaves the heart restless and unsatisfied. Buddhism offers a profound truth that shatters this illusion. It teaches that happiness is not something distant, hidden at the finish line of a race. It is not something waiting for you in the future once everything falls into place. Happiness is already here, in this very moment, waiting to be noticed. The reason most people do not experience it is not because it is missing, but because they are too distracted, too busy looking outward instead of inward. Imagine a person who spends years traveling across the world in search of treasure, only to return home and discover that it was buried in their own garden all along. That is exactly how most of us live. We search everywhere else, not realizing the joy we seek is already within us. When you finally stop running and allow yourself to be still, something beautiful happens. You begin to notice the little things you once overlooked. The simple rhythm of your breath, the gentle warmth of the sun on your skin, the sound of birds singing in the distance, or the silence that rests between thoughts. All of these are reminders that life itself is a gift. Joy is not waiting for the day you have more money, more recognition, or more success. Joy is woven into the fabric of ordinary moments, available to you right now if you are willing to see it. The paradox is that the more you chase happiness, the further it runs from you, because chasing assumes that happiness is missing. But the moment you pause, the moment you turn inward and embrace what already is, you realize that happiness was never gone. It was only hidden behind layers of distraction and desire. Peace does not arrive when you get everything you want. It arrives when you appreciate what you already have. The truth is simple yet powerful. The more you turn inward, the more peace you discover, and the less you feel the need to chase what was never missing in the first place. 2. Pain is not your enemy. From the moment we are born, we are conditioned to believe that happiness means the absence of pain. We are taught to avoid anything that hurts, to run from discomfort, to silence our sadness, and to treat pain as something evil that must be eliminated at all costs. This belief makes us spend our lives fighting against suffering, but in doing so, we only make it heavier. Buddhism teaches us a very different truth. Pain itself is not the enemy. Pain is a natural part of life, an unavoidable reality that touches every single human being. What creates our deepest suffering is not the pain itself, but the resistance we build against it. Think of it this way: physical pain from a cut or a wound is natural and temporary, but the suffering that lingers comes from the story we attach to it. Why me? Why now? I can't handle this. That mental resistance multiplies the pain and turns it into suffering. The Buddha once said, "Pain is certain, suffering is optional." This means that while no one can escape difficulties, heartbreaks, illnesses, or losses, we can choose how we respond to them. If we spend our energy resenting, denying, or running from pain, it becomes heavier. But if we learn to face it, to breathe through it, and to accept it as a teacher, pain transforms into something meaningful. Life's most valuable lessons are often hidden inside the moments we wish we could avoid. Think about the way fire forges steel. Without the heat, the steel would remain weak and brittle. In the same way, your challenges strengthen you, your heartbreaks deepen your compassion, and your struggles awaken wisdom within you that comfort never could. A person who has never faced pain often remains shallow, untested, and fragile. But the one who has walked through loss, failure, and disappointment with awareness emerges resilient, grounded, and wise. Instead of seeing pain as punishment, see it as a messenger. It is showing you where you need to grow, what you need to let go of, or what truth you have been avoiding. For example, emotional pain in a relationship may teach you about your self-worth. The pain of failure may teach you resilience and humility. The pain of loss may teach you the preciousness of time and the impermanence of life. Pain, when embraced with awareness, is not an obstacle, but a path toward awakening. Imagine a storm sweeping across the land. In the moment, it may seem destructive, but when it passes, the earth is nourished, the air is clearer, and the seeds buried deep in the soil are given the water they need to grow. Your pain works the same way. It shakes you, it challenges you, but it also waters the seeds of wisdom, compassion, and strength within you. When you change your relationship with pain, everything in life changes. You stop fearing it. And instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" you begin to ask, "What is this teaching me?" This simple shift turns pain from an enemy into a guide, and once you embrace it in this way, you will never see suffering the same again. 3. The present moment is your home. Most people live their lives trapped in a time that doesn't exist. Their minds either pull them back into the past, where they replay mistakes, regrets, and old wounds, or push them forward into the future, where they worry about what might go wrong, what they might lose, or what they still have to achieve. This constant swinging between yesterday and tomorrow creates a life filled with restlessness, anxiety, and dissatisfaction. Yet Buddhism teaches something profoundly simple and liberating. The present moment is your true home. It is the only place where life is actually happening, and it is the only place where peace can be found. When you look closely, you realize that the past no longer exists. It is only alive in your memory. The future has not yet arrived. It exists only in your imagination. The only moment that is real, the only place where you can breathe, live, and act is this very moment. And yet, this is the very moment we ignore most of the time. We eat without tasting, we walk without noticing, we listen without hearing, and we breathe without feeling. We are so lost in thought that life slips by unnoticed. As the Buddha once said, "Do not dwell in the past, do not dream of the future, concentrate the mind on the present moment." Think of something as simple as drinking a cup of tea. You can drink it while your mind is tangled in yesterday's arguments or tomorrow's worries, and in doing so, you miss the experience entirely. Or you can drink it with full awareness, feeling the warmth of the cup in your hands, noticing the aroma, tasting the flavor slowly. The tea in both cases is the same, but the experience is completely different. This is the power of presence. When you live fully in the present, the simplest things become extraordinary, and the ordinary moments of life reveal their hidden beauty. The present moment is also the only place where healing happens. If you are burdened by regret, you cannot change what has already passed. If you are consumed by worry, you cannot control what has not yet arrived. But here, in this breath, in this step, in this heartbeat, you have the power to find peace, to make choices, and to live fully. Every time you bring your awareness back to now, whether by focusing on your breath, observing the world around you, or simply becoming aware of your body, you return to your true home where stillness and clarity reside. Living in the present does not mean ignoring your responsibilities or forgetting about the future. It means anchoring yourself in the now so that you can face life with calmness instead of fear. When you stop being lost in time, you realize that the miracle of life is not waiting for you somewhere else. It is already happening, here and now. The laughter of a child, the sound of rain, the touch of a loved one's hand, even the silence between your thoughts. All of these are reminders that you do not need to wait for a better future to feel alive. The more you train yourself to return to the present, the lighter your life becomes. You stop carrying the weight of what cannot be undone, and you stop fearing what has not yet come. You begin to live fully, moment by moment, breath by breath, and in doing so, you discover the greatest truth of all, that happiness, peace, and freedom are not hidden somewhere in time. They are here, waiting for you in the only place life has ever existed, the present moment. 4. Comparison is the thief of joy. One of the greatest sources of human unhappiness does not come from what we lack, but from what we see in others. From childhood, we are subtly trained to measure ourselves against those around us. Grades in school, achievements in sports, salaries in careers, appearances on social media. Without realizing it, we carry this habit into adulthood, and it becomes a constant background noise in our minds. Instead of living fully in our own lives, we are busy watching others, comparing our progress, our beauty, our success, and our happiness to theirs. But Buddhism reminds us that this endless comparison is a trap. It robs us of joy and blinds us to the uniqueness of our own path. The truth is that life is not a competition. Every person has their own timeline, their own struggles, their own blessings, and their own destiny. Comparing yourself to others is like comparing a tree to a river. Both exist beautifully, but they are not meant to be the same. A tree does not envy the flowing water, and the river does not wish to stand tall like the tree. Yet humans constantly fall into the illusion that happiness is measured by how much better or worse they are than the people around them. This mindset leads only to jealousy, insecurity, and a constant sense of never being enough. Social media has made this even worse. Today we see only the highlight reels of other people's lives, the vacations, the celebrations, the successes, without seeing the pain, the failures, and the quiet struggles behind the scenes. And then we measure our unfiltered reality against their carefully edited illusion. No wonder so many people feel inadequate, even when they already have so much to be grateful for. The Buddha taught that craving and comparison are at the root of suffering. The more you look outward for validation, the more you lose sight of your own inner worth. Imagine two flowers blooming in a garden. One may blossom in the spring and another in the summer. If the spring flower compares itself to the summer flower, it will feel like a failure for not blooming later. But each is perfect in its own season. In the same way, your life unfolds in its own rhythm. You may not be where others are, but that does not mean you are behind. You are exactly where you are meant to be for your own growth, lessons, and experiences. When you stop comparing, you finally begin to see your own journey clearly. You realize that the things you once envied in others may not even bring you peace if you had them. You recognize that true contentment does not come from being better than someone else. It comes from being in harmony with yourself. By letting go of comparison, you allow yourself to celebrate others' successes without feeling threatened, and to embrace your own progress without feeling ashamed. The practice of gratitude is the antidote to comparison. When you turn your focus from what others have to what you already possess, you break the endless cycle of envy and dissatisfaction. You begin to see the small victories, the blessings, and the unique gifts that make your life meaningful. Comparison fades when gratitude grows, because gratitude reminds you that nothing is missing from your life. You are already walking your own perfect path. The truth is simple but powerful. Comparison is the thief of joy because it blinds you to the beauty of your own life. The moment you stop measuring yourself against others, you begin to feel free. Free to grow at your own pace, free to appreciate your own blessings, and free to experience joy without needing it to look like anyone else's. 5. Let go or be dragged. Every one of us carries within our hearts memories, wounds, disappointments, and grudges that we struggle to release. Someone insulted us years ago, and we still replay their words. A loved one betrayed our trust, and we carry that bitterness into every new relationship. We failed at something important, and instead of moving forward, we drag that failure like a heavy chain behind us. This clinging becomes a prison, and without realizing it, we become prisoners of the very experiences we wish had never happened. Buddhism offers a liberating truth. You cannot move freely in life if you refuse to let go. The choice is always the same: let go or be dragged. Think of anger for a moment. When someone hurts you, anger feels powerful, almost protective, as if holding on to it keeps you safe. But anger is like gripping a burning coal with the intention of throwing it at someone else. You are the one who gets burned first. Resentment works the same way. It promises strength, but delivers suffering. When you cling to the past, you are not punishing those who hurt you. You are only harming yourself by reliving the wound over and over. The Buddha once said, "Holding on to anger is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die." True freedom comes not from holding on, but from learning how to release. Letting go does not mean pretending the hurt never happened. It does not mean excusing bad behavior or denying your pain. It means releasing the grip it has on your heart. It means acknowledging that the past cannot be changed and that carrying it endlessly only steals your present and your future. When you let go, you are not saying, "It didn't matter." You are saying, "It matters, but it will not control me anymore." You are choosing peace over chains. Life itself shows us this lesson in countless ways. The trees let go of their leaves each autumn so that new growth can appear in spring. The river lets go of water constantly, never clinging to a single drop, yet it never runs dry. Nature thrives because it understands impermanence. We, however, suffer because we resist it. We hold tightly to what was, wishing it could stay the same, and in doing so, we are dragged by the current of life instead of flowing with it. Think about the times you have clung to something long after it was gone, a relationship that ended, a mistake you made, a phase of life that passed. Did holding on bring you peace, or did it keep you stuck? In truth, the moment you released it, even with tears in your eyes, you began to feel lighter. Letting go is painful, but the pain of release is far smaller than the suffering of holding on forever. Buddhism teaches us that impermanence is not our enemy. It is the nature of life. Everything changes, everything passes, and everything transforms. When we fight this truth, we suffer. When we accept it, we find freedom. The act of letting go is not weakness, it is courage. It is choosing to trust that life still holds beauty, that your story is not finished, and that peace is possible even after loss. The reality is clear. You can either let go, or you will be dragged endlessly by the weight of the past. The moment you choose to release what you cannot control, you free your heart. And in that freedom, you discover that life feels lighter, softer, and far more peaceful than you ever imagined. 6. Gratitude transforms everything. If there is one practice that has the power to transform your entire experience of life, it is gratitude. Gratitude may sound like a simple concept, something people often mention casually when they say, "Be grateful for what you have." But when understood deeply, gratitude is not just a polite response or a social habit. It is a way of perceiving the world. It is a shift in consciousness that changes the way you see yourself, your struggles, your blessings, and the world around you. Buddhism teaches us that the mind creates our experience of life. If the mind is restless, ungrateful, and constantly craving what it does not have, then even the most beautiful life will feel empty. But if the mind is calm, appreciative, and anchored in gratitude, then even a simple life will feel abundant. Gratitude does not change what you have, but it changes how you see what you have. And that changes everything. Most people live in a state of lack. They wake up and immediately think about what is missing, what they do not own, what they have not achieved, what they still need to fix. They measure their days by unmet desires instead of realized blessings. This mindset creates a constant sense of dissatisfaction, and no matter how much they gain, it is never enough. A person might earn more money, but now they want a bigger house. They might enter a relationship, but soon they notice the flaws instead of appreciating the love. They might travel to new places, but instead of enjoying the present, they compare their experience to what others seem to have online. Gratitude is the medicine for this disease of endless craving. It reminds you to stop focusing on what is absent and to see clearly the gifts that are already present in your life. Think of something as simple as breathing. We take thousands of breaths every single day without noticing them. Yet each breath is a miracle. Without it, life would end in moments. Your lungs expand and contract, your heart beats tirelessly, your body functions with a wisdom far beyond your conscious control, and most of the time, you never pause to appreciate it. Gratitude brings awareness back to these hidden blessings. It opens your eyes to the truth that every day you wake up, every moment your heart continues to beat, is a gift beyond measure. When you live with gratitude, the ordinary becomes extraordinary because you no longer take it for granted. Buddhism often speaks about the hungry ghost mind, a state of being where no matter how much you feed your desires, you always feel empty. This is the mind of comparison, craving, and dissatisfaction. Gratitude is the opposite of that. It is the realization that in this very moment, you already have enough. When you drink a glass of water with awareness, gratitude allows you to recognize how precious it is. Water is life itself, and yet in many parts of the world, people struggle to find clean water. The simple act of drinking becomes a meditation on abundance. Gratitude takes what is small and reveals its true greatness. The beauty of gratitude is that it does not require external change. It requires internal awareness. Two people can live the exact same life, with the same struggles and the same blessings, but one will feel miserable while the other feels content. The difference lies in perspective. The ungrateful mind focuses on what is lacking, while the grateful mind focuses on what is given. In this way, gratitude is not just a practice. It is a lens through which you experience the world, and when you change the lens, the world itself seems to change. Gratitude also transforms suffering. At first, this may sound strange. How can you be grateful for pain, for loss, for challenges? But when you look deeper, you see that gratitude does not mean you celebrate your suffering. It means you recognize the hidden growth and strength it brings. A difficult period in your life may have taught you resilience. A heartbreak may have shown you the depth of your own compassion. A failure may have guided you toward a path that was truer to your heart. Gratitude allows you to see that even the hardest moments carried gifts within them. Instead of resenting the storm, you begin to thank it for watering the seeds of wisdom inside you. One of the great teachings of Buddhism is impermanence, the truth that nothing lasts forever. Gratitude is deeply connected to this teaching. When you realize that everything is fleeting, you begin to cherish it more. You hold your loved ones closer, knowing that time with them is limited. You savor the present moment, knowing it will never come again. You appreciate your health, your youth, your opportunities, because you understand they are not guaranteed to last. Impermanence makes life fragile, but gratitude transforms that fragility into beauty. It makes every moment precious, like a flower that blooms for only a short time. Instead of clinging in fear, you learn to appreciate with joy. Gratitude also softens the heart. When you practice gratitude, you become less focused on what the world owes you and more aware of what life has already given you. This shift reduces envy, jealousy, and resentment. Instead of feeling bitter about someone else's success, you can celebrate it because you no longer see life as a competition. Gratitude teaches you to live from abundance rather than scarcity. It whispers, "There is enough for everyone. There is enough for me." And when you truly believe this, your heart becomes lighter and freer. Practicing gratitude does not have to be complicated. It can begin with something as simple as pausing each morning and naming 3 things you are thankful for. It could be the air in your lungs, the bed that gave you rest, the food you will eat, or the people who love you. Over time, this practice rewires the brain to notice blessings more naturally. Instead of overlooking them, you begin to see them everywhere. Gratitude grows stronger the more you practice it, until it becomes your natural state of being. When gratitude becomes your way of life, you stop waiting for happiness in the future. You stop telling yourself, "I will be happy when I have more money, when I lose weight, when I achieve this goal." You realize happiness is available right now, in this moment, if you choose to see it. Gratitude is the bridge between the life you have and the life you dream of, because it teaches you that what you already have is enough. And from this place of contentment, even greater blessings naturally flow. The most profound thing about gratitude is that it transforms not just your mind, but your entire experience of reality. It is like putting on a new pair of glasses. Suddenly, what once seemed ordinary glows with beauty, and what once felt heavy becomes lighter. Gratitude does not erase your struggles, but it gives you the strength to face them with peace. It does not remove challenges, but it reveals the blessings hidden within them. Gratitude transforms not only how you see the world, but also how you live in it. So ask yourself, what would change if, instead of waking up each day focusing on what is missing, you woke up grateful for what is already here? What would happen if you began to see your life not as something lacking, but as something already overflowing with gifts? The answer is simple. You would feel lighter, freer, more joyful. Gratitude would dissolve the endless craving for more and replace it with a quiet peace that whispers, "I have enough. I am enough. Life itself is enough." And in that realization, everything changes. Gratitude does not just improve life, it transforms it. 7. You are already enough. From the moment we are born, the world begins whispering in our ears that we are not enough. As children, we are compared to others. Our grades are measured, our behavior judged, our talents weighed against those of our peers. As we grow older, this voice of comparison grows louder. It tells us that we need to earn more money, achieve greater success, be more attractive, more intelligent, more popular, more productive, more everything. We carry this belief deep inside ourselves, and it becomes a silent background noise in our minds. I am not enough. This belief drives people to exhaustion, to endless chasing, to constant self-doubt. And yet, Buddhism reveals a profound truth that has the power to silence this inner torment. You are already enough. The problem is not that we are incomplete. The problem is that we are covered by layers of illusion that make us forget our true nature. Imagine a diamond buried under dirt. From the outside, it may look dull and worthless, but the diamond is still there, unbroken, unchanged, radiant beneath the layers. In the same way, your worth is not determined by your achievements, your possessions, or your appearance. Your worth is already complete, already present, already shining. What prevents you from seeing it is the dirt of comparison, fear, insecurity, and doubt. The spiritual journey is not about becoming someone new. It is about remembering who you already are beneath those illusions. Most of us are caught in a cycle of striving. We think, if only I achieve this goal, if only I improve myself, if only I become better, then I will finally be enough. But this mindset is like chasing the horizon. The closer you get, the further it moves away. You may achieve one goal, but then you will set another. You may fix one insecurity, but then another will rise. The belief that you must become enough keeps you trapped in an endless race that has no finish line. The Buddha's teachings invite us to step off this exhausting path and realize that we do not need to chase our own worth. Worthiness is not something to be earned, it is something to be recognized. Think about nature for a moment. Does a tree question its worth because it is not as tall as the one beside it? Does a river doubt its value because it is not as wide as another? Of course not. Each exists as it is, complete and whole in its own way. And yet humans, the most conscious beings on this planet, spend their lives doubting themselves. We tell ourselves we are too much of this and not enough of that, constantly battling an invisible standard that never truly exists. If we could learn from nature, we would see that we too are already whole, already valuable, already enough, exactly as we are. Buddhism also teaches that the self we cling to, the one that feels inadequate, is an illusion. The ego is constantly comparing, labeling, and measuring, but it is not who we truly are. Beneath the ego is something much deeper, pure awareness, pure being, pure presence. This awareness does not need to be improved. It does not need validation. It does not lack anything. When you connect to this awareness through mindfulness, meditation, or simple presence, you feel a peace that does not depend on achievement. In that space, you realize that you are enough because you exist, because you are alive, because you are part of this vast, interconnected universe. Nothing can add to your worth, and nothing can take it away. The illusion of not being enough often comes from comparison. We look at others and see only their strengths, their highlights, their successes, and then we compare those to our weaknesses and struggles. This is like comparing the surface of one person's ocean to the depths of another's. You are never seeing the full picture. Everyone carries pain, doubt, and fear, even if they hide it well. The truth is that no one is perfect, and perfection is not the goal of life. The goal is authenticity, acceptance, and presence. When you stop comparing, you can finally embrace yourself as you are. Another source of this illusion is the constant pressure of society. Advertisements, media, and culture are designed to make you feel inadequate so that you will buy products, chase success, and conform to certain standards. They tell you that you need a certain body type, a certain lifestyle, a certain level of wealth in order to be happy. But if happiness could be bought, then the wealthiest people in the world would be the happiest, and yet many of them are not. True peace does not come from meeting society's endless demands. It comes from stepping back and recognizing that you are already enough without them. Letting go of the belief that you are not enough is not easy. It requires unlearning years of conditioning and silencing an inner critic that has been fed by the outside world. But the moment you begin to practice self-compassion, the chains start to loosen. Self-compassion is the practice of treating yourself with the same kindness you would offer to a loved one. When you make a mistake, instead of tearing yourself down, you remind yourself that imperfection is part of being human. When you feel insecure, instead of judging yourself, you offer patience and understanding. With each act of self-compassion, you remind yourself that you are worthy of love, worthy of peace, and worthy of happiness exactly as you are. Gratitude also plays a role here. When you practice gratitude, you shift your focus from what you lack to what you already have. This includes yourself. Instead of thinking, "I will be enough when I change," you begin to see that there are already countless things within you to appreciate: your resilience, your kindness, your creativity, your ability to endure. Gratitude towards yourself is one of the most powerful ways to break free from the illusion of inadequacy. Buddhism teaches that awakening is not about becoming more, it is about realizing the truth that has always been there. You are not broken, you are not incomplete, you are not behind, you are a whole being, worthy of love and belonging simply because you exist. When you begin to see yourself this way, everything changes. You no longer live from a place of scarcity, constantly striving to prove your worth. You live from a place of abundance, knowing that you already have enough within you. Imagine for a moment what your life would look like if you truly believed you were enough. How much anxiety would disappear, how much chasing would end, how much peace would enter your heart. You would stop overworking to prove yourself. You would stop entering relationships out of fear of being alone. You would stop criticizing your body, your mind, your life, because you would finally see the truth. You are already whole. And from that place of wholeness, you would live with freedom, authenticity, and joy. The paradox is that once you accept yourself as enough, you actually grow more. Why? Because growth fueled by self-hate is shallow and exhausting, but growth fueled by self-love is natural and joyful. When you accept yourself, you create the foundation for true transformation, because you are no longer running from yourself. You are growing with yourself. In the end, the greatest illusion you must overcome is the belief that you must earn your worth. The greatest truth you must embrace is that you already have it. The Buddha taught that enlightenment is like waking up from a dream. The dream tells you that you are not enough, that you must chase endlessly, that peace is far away. Waking up shows you that peace is here, worthiness is here, happiness is here, within you now. So when the world tells you that you are not enough, remember this: you are not what society says you should be. You are not the sum of your achievements. You are not the mistakes of your past. You are not your fears, your doubts, or your insecurities. You are something deeper, an awareness, a presence, a being that is already whole. Beneath every illusion, beneath every false belief, there is a truth shining quietly. You are already enough. And when you begin to live from that truth, life itself will never feel the same again. 8. The freedom of letting life be as it is. One of the greatest struggles of the human heart is the constant need to control life. We spend our days trying to bend the world to our expectations, forcing situations to match our desires and shaping people into who we want them to be. When things go our way, we feel pleased for a while, but the satisfaction is fragile and temporary. When life refuses to cooperate, and it often does, we feel frustrated, anxious, and defeated. This endless fight against reality is the hidden source of so much of our suffering. Buddhism, however, offers a liberating path. It teaches us that peace does not come from controlling life. Peace comes from learning to let life be as it is. The mind is a restless architect, constantly building stories of how things should be. We tell ourselves, "My career should be further along by now. My partner should understand me better. My family should support me more. The world should be fairer, kinder, easier." These thoughts may seem harmless, but they are seeds of discontent. The word "should" is heavy. It carries with it resistance to reality. Every time we cling to a "should," we are silently rejecting what is. And when we reject the present, we reject life itself. Letting life be as it is does not mean giving up. It does not mean you stop working for your dreams, stop trying to improve yourself, or stop striving to create a better world. What it means is that you stop waging war against the present moment. You accept reality as it is right now, and from that acceptance you act with clarity and wisdom instead of anger and frustration. Imagine being in a boat carried by a strong river current. If you resist the current, you exhaust yourself, thrashing against a force you cannot control. But if you learn to move with it, guiding your boat skillfully, the same current that once exhausted you now carries you forward. This is what it means to let life be as it is. We often believe that control equals safety. We think that if we could just manage every detail, predict every outcome, and shape every event, then we would finally feel secure. But control is an illusion. No matter how carefully we plan, life has a way of surprising us. Relationships change, health shifts, circumstances evolve. The more we cling to control, the more fragile we feel, because every change becomes a threat. But when we release this need to control, when we trust life instead of fighting it, we discover a profound freedom. The ups and downs of existence no longer shatter us. They become part of the flow we move with gracefully. Think of the seasons. No matter how much we may prefer the warmth of spring or the long days of summer, we cannot stop the arrival of autumn or the chill of winter. If we fight against them, we suffer. But if we accept them, if we learn to see their unique beauty, the colors of fall, the stillness of snow, then even the coldest winter becomes meaningful. Life's seasons are the same. Joy will come and go. Pain will come and go. Success will come and go. Nothing is permanent, and that impermanence is not something to fear. It is what makes life precious. Letting life be as it is means embracing every season, knowing each one has its place, its lesson, its gift. The Buddha often spoke about suffering arising from attachment. We suffer because we cling to people, to outcomes, to identities, to the idea that life should always match our desires. But clinging is like holding a rope that is being pulled away from you. The tighter you hold, the more it burns your hands. Freedom comes not from holding tighter, but from letting go. To let life be is to unclench your fists, to release the rope, and to allow things to unfold. This does not mean passivity. It means moving through life with open hands instead of clenched fists, responding instead of resisting, flowing instead of fighting. Letting life be as it is also changes how we see other people. So often our suffering comes not from who people are, but from who we want them to be. We expect friends to always agree with us, partners to always meet our needs, children to always follow our guidance, parents to always understand us. When they fall short of these expectations, as they inevitably will, we feel betrayed or disappointed. But the truth is, people are who they are, not who we imagine them to be. Letting life be means letting people be. It means accepting them as they are, instead of trying to mold them into an ideal. Paradoxically, when we release our grip, relationships often grow healthier because love can only thrive in freedom, not in control. On a deeper level, letting life be as it is means letting yourself be as you are. Many people spend their lives in inner conflict, constantly judging themselves, constantly wishing they were different, smarter, stronger, kinder, more successful. They fight against their own nature, and in doing so, they become their own harshest enemy. Self-acceptance does not mean you stop growing. It means you stop fighting yourself. It means you recognize that even as you grow and evolve, you are enough right now. You can still strive for growth, but you do so from a place of love rather than self-hate. This is perhaps the most profound freedom of all, to let yourself be as you are in this moment, without judgment, without resistance, without war. The practice of mindfulness is one of the most powerful ways to cultivate this freedom. Mindfulness is the art of fully experiencing the present moment without resistance. When you are mindful, you are not wishing the moment were different. You are not lost in regret or racing into the future. You are simply here, fully alive, fully aware, allowing things to be as they are. This presence dissolves suffering because suffering lives in resistance, and resistance cannot survive when you accept. In mindfulness, even ordinary activities, walking, eating, breathing, become sacred because you are no longer demanding that they be anything other than what they are. Letting life be as it is does not mean your life will be free of pain. Pain is inevitable. But when you stop fighting reality, the pain becomes lighter, easier to carry. You may not be able to stop the rain from falling, but you can learn to dance in it. You may not be able to prevent challenges, but you can face them with calmness instead of panic. The difference lies not in what happens to you, but in how you meet it. When you let life be, you no longer demand that it always be comfortable. You accept that discomfort is part of the journey, and this acceptance transforms discomfort into strength. Think of a river flowing down a mountain. It does not stop when it meets a rock. It does not fight or rage against the obstacle. It simply flows around it, over it, or through it, continuing its journey toward the ocean. This is the way of life. Obstacles will come, but if you fight them with anger, you become stuck. If you allow yourself to flow, you find another path forward. Letting life be is about becoming like the river, fluid, adaptable, unstoppable, not because you resist, but because you yield. When you look back at your life, you will see that many of the things you once resisted turned out to be blessings in disguise. The job you didn't get made space for something better. The relationship that ended taught you self-worth. The failure that embarrassed you became the seed of wisdom. In the moment, you resisted them because they did not match your plan. But life was working in its own mysterious way, shaping you, guiding you, strengthening you. Letting life be means trusting that process, even when you cannot see the outcome. It means recognizing that you do not always need to understand the why to find peace in the what is. The greatest freedom is not in controlling life, but in aligning with it. When you let life be as it is, you discover that you do not need to carry the weight of the world on your shoulders. You can breathe, you can rest, you can live each moment fully without constantly demanding that it be different. This is the heart of true peace. So the next time you find yourself resisting, wishing things were other than they are, pause, take a deep breath, remind yourself, this moment is what it is. I can fight it or I can accept it. If I fight it, I suffer. If I accept it, I am free. The choice is always yours, and when you choose acceptance, when you choose to let life be as it is, you will discover a freedom so profound that it will change the way you live forever. Because in the end, happiness is not found in forcing life to match your plans. Happiness is found in allowing life to unfold, trusting its rhythm, and embracing its beauty as it is. And once you learn to live this way, life will never feel the same again. 9. Peace begins when you stop fighting yourself. Most people believe that the greatest battles of life are fought outside of them, against circumstances, against unfair systems, against difficult people, against life itself. But if you look deeper, you will realize that the greatest battle is not out there. The greatest battle is the one that takes place inside of you, in the silence of your mind, where you wrestle with your own thoughts, your own doubts, your own insecurities. And this inner battle is often more exhausting than any challenge the outside world could ever throw at you. You may endure the storms of life with courage, but if you are at war with yourself, peace will always remain out of reach. Buddhism teaches us that true freedom begins when this inner war ends, when you stop fighting yourself and begin to live in harmony with who you are. From a young age, we are conditioned to believe that we must constantly prove ourselves. Parents, teachers, and society give us rules, expectations, and standards, and we grow up with the sense that unless we measure up, we are not worthy. We internalize this belief and carry it into adulthood. It becomes the inner critic that constantly whispers, "You should be better. you should be stronger, you should be smarter, you should be more successful. This voice never rests. No matter what you achieve, it always demands more. It tells you that you are too much of one thing and not enough of another. And because of this voice, many people live their entire lives in quiet self-rejection, never realizing that the only prison keeping them trapped is the one they built inside their own mind. Peace begins when you stop listening to that voice of endless criticism. Peace begins when you recognize that perfection is not required for worthiness. Imagine if a flower in the garden constantly compared itself to the others and said, "I am not tall enough, my petals are not as bright, my fragrance is too faint." It would live its entire life in misery, never appreciating its own beauty. Yet the gardener never doubts its worth. He sees its unique place in the garden. You are the same. You may not look, think, or live like others, but that does not mean you are lacking. You are simply different, and your difference is part of the perfection of life's vast design. The inner battle often takes the form of regret and guilt. We replay our past mistakes over and over, punishing ourselves long after life has moved on. We tell ourselves, "I should have done better, I ruined everything, I will never be forgiven." But Buddhism reminds us that clinging to the past only deepens suffering. The past is gone, and you cannot change it. But you can learn from it, grow from it, and release it. Self-forgiveness is not about denying what happened. It is about recognizing that you, like all humans, are imperfect, learning, evolving. To keep punishing yourself forever is like refusing to let a wound heal. The moment you forgive yourself, you stop reopening the wound, and peace begins to grow. Another form of inner battle is the endless striving to become someone else. We often think, if only I were more confident like them, more talented like them, more beautiful, more intelligent, more successful, then I would be happy. But this striving creates nothing but suffering because you can never become someone else. You can only become yourself. The Buddha taught that comparison is the root of dissatisfaction because it blinds us to our own path. When you stop striving to be someone else and instead embrace who you already are, you find a peace that no achievement can bring. Mindfulness is one of the most powerful tools for ending the inner battle. When you practice mindfulness, you observe your thoughts without judgment. You see the self-criticism arise, and instead of believing it, you simply notice it. Ah, there is the voice again. This simple act of awareness weakens the power of the inner critic. It shows you that your thoughts are not who you are. They are passing clouds in the sky of your mind. The sky itself, the awareness behind the thoughts, is always clear, always whole, always peaceful. When you identify with that awareness instead of the critic, the battle begins to dissolve. Self-compassion is another essential key. Most of us are kind and forgiving to others, but harsh and merciless toward ourselves. We comfort a friend who is struggling, reminding them that mistakes are human. But when we struggle, we call ourselves failures. Why do we believe compassion belongs to others but not to us? The truth is, until you learn to treat yourself with kindness, peace will remain a stranger. Self-compassion means speaking to yourself the way you would speak to someone you love, with patience, with understanding, with encouragement. It means giving yourself permission to be human. And when you cultivate this compassion, the war inside you begins to quiet. Peace also comes when you release the masks you wear for others. Many people spend their lives pretending to be stronger than they feel, happier than they are, more successful than they truly are. They hide their struggles because they fear judgment, and in doing so, they create a life that feels false. The more masks you wear, the more disconnected you become from your true self. Buddhism teaches authenticity, living in alignment with who you are instead of who the world expects you to be. When you drop the masks, you may feel vulnerable, but you also feel free. You discover that peace does not come from being perfect in others' eyes. It comes from being real in your own. Letting go of the inner battle also means accepting your flaws. Many people believe peace will come only after they fix everything about themselves. But the truth is, flaws are not barriers to peace. They are part of the human experience. Everyone has them. To wait until you are flawless before you allow yourself peace is to wait forever. Instead, peace begins the moment you accept yourself fully, imperfections and all. Acceptance does not mean you stop growing. It means you stop hating yourself while you grow. You learn to walk with yourself as a friend instead of as an enemy. Think about how much energy you have wasted fighting yourself, all the sleepless nights spent worrying that you were not enough, all the hours lost replaying mistakes, all the opportunities missed because you doubted yourself, all the relationships damaged because you did not believe you were worthy of love. What would your life look like if you redirected that energy into living, into loving, into being present? The moment you stop fighting yourself, you free up a vast amount of energy that can be used for joy, creativity, and connection. The Buddha taught that the root of suffering is craving, the constant desire for things to be different from how they are. This craving does not apply only to the world outside, it applies also to how we see ourselves. We crave to be different, to be better, to be someone else, and in doing so, we suffer. When we stop craving to be different and instead accept ourselves as we are, the craving dissolves, and with it, much of our suffering. This acceptance is not laziness, it is wisdom. It is the wisdom that says, I am enough now, even as I grow. I am worthy now, even as I learn. I am whole now, even as I change. Peace is not something you will find in the future after you have fixed yourself completely. Peace is something you allow into this very moment by ending the inner war. It begins with a choice to stop punishing yourself, to stop comparing, to stop demanding perfection. It begins with the courage to say, I am human, I am imperfect, and that is enough. When you make this choice, the critic inside you grows quieter, the tension in your heart softens, the storm in your mind calms, and slowly you begin to feel a stillness you may not have felt in years, the stillness of simply being. Imagine living a life where you are no longer at war with yourself. Imagine waking up in the morning and not hearing the voice that tells you you are not enough. Imagine looking in the mirror and feeling acceptance instead of judgment. Imagine walking through the day without the constant weight of regret or comparison. That life is not as far away as you think. It begins the moment you decide to stop fighting and start embracing, because the truth is, you were never your critic. You were never your doubts. You were never your insecurities. You are the awareness behind them, the quiet presence that has been watching all along. That presence is already peaceful, already whole, already enough. All you need to do is stop resisting it, stop fighting it, and allow yourself to rest in it. When you do, you will realize that the battle is over, not because you won, but because you no longer need to fight. And in that moment, you will understand one of the most profound truths of all. Peace does not come from changing yourself into someone else. Peace comes from finally making peace with yourself. And when you stop fighting yourself, when you finally embrace who you are, life will never feel the same again. 10. Freedom is found in living with less, not more. If you look at the way most people live today, you will notice a common theme. Everyone is chasing more. More wealth, more possessions, more recognition, more experiences, more followers, more validation, more of everything. It has become the silent religion of our modern world, this belief that fulfillment is always just one step beyond where we are now, that if we accumulate enough, buy enough, achieve enough, we will finally feel whole. Yet despite all the chasing, most people feel emptier than ever. They fill their houses with things, but their hearts remain unsatisfied. They fill their schedules with activity, but their souls remain restless. The hunger never ends, because no matter how much you gain, the craving for more always returns. Buddhism offers a radical but liberating truth. Freedom is not found in living with more, it is found in living with less. This teaching is not simply about possessions, though it includes them. It is about a state of mind. The Buddha spoke of craving as the root of suffering. Craving is not limited to material goods. It is the endless thirst for life to give us more than it already has, for people to give us more than they can, for ourselves to be more than we are. This craving creates a restless dissatisfaction that nothing can satisfy. You may quench your thirst for a moment, but soon the craving returns, and you are back on the wheel of suffering, spinning endlessly. To step off this wheel, you must learn the art of less. Less craving, less attachment, less noise, less clutter, both outside you and within you. Think of your physical surroundings for a moment. Many of us fill our homes with objects, thinking they will bring comfort. But the more things we collect, the more they own us. Every possession requires energy. Energy to maintain, to clean, to protect, to replace. Our closets overflow, our rooms are cluttered, and instead of feeling abundant, we feel suffocated. Contrast this with walking into a space that is simple and uncluttered. The air feels lighter, your mind feels clearer. Simplicity in the outer world creates spaciousness in the inner world. This is why so many Buddhist monks live with only a few robes, a bowl, and the bare essentials. It is not deprivation, it is freedom. It is the release of the unnecessary so that the truly meaningful can shine. But the clutter of the mind is even heavier than the clutter of the house. We hoard thoughts the way we hoard possessions. We cling to old regrets, anxieties about the future, judgments of ourselves and others. We replay conversations that are long over. We carry worries about things that may never happen. Just like physical clutter, these thoughts pile up and fill the mind with noise, leaving no space for peace. Simplicity of mind means learning to let go of this endless chatter. It means releasing the belief that every thought is important, every worry is necessary, every judgment is true. It means allowing silence to return. In that silence, we discover a profound lightness, a freedom that no amount of more could ever give. Living with less does not mean rejecting life's joys. It does not mean you cannot enjoy food, relationships, or achievements. It means you no longer depend on them to complete you. You can appreciate them fully without clinging. When the meal is finished, you let it go. When the moment passes, you allow it to pass. When the relationship changes, you honor its impermanence without collapsing. To live with less is to live with open hands, not clenched fists. It is to enjoy without grasping, to hold without owning, to love without controlling. Imagine for a moment carrying a heavy backpack filled with stones. Each stone represents something you cling to, possessions, grudges, ambitions, fears. As you walk, the weight presses down on you. You become exhausted, burdened by the load. Now imagine setting the backpack down, removing stone after stone. With each stone you release, you feel lighter, freer, more alive. This is what happens when you choose less over more. The burden of life decreases, and suddenly the world feels wide and open again. In our culture, success is often measured by how much we acquire. But Buddhism reminds us that true success is measured by how much we can release. The person who can let go of anger is stronger than the one who conquers cities. The person who can live simply in peace is wealthier than the one who fills mansions with gold. Because possessions can be lost, status can be taken, beauty can fade, but inner peace cannot be stolen once you have cultivated it. To live with less is to root your happiness in something untouchable, something eternal. Living with less also transforms relationships. Many people enter relationships with endless expectations, expecting the other person to fill their emptiness, to make them happy, to meet every need. But this is a heavy burden to place on anyone, and it often destroys the very love we seek. When you live with less in the heart, you release these suffocating demands. You no longer need the other person to complete you, because you are already whole. Instead of clinging, you can love freely. Instead of demanding, you can appreciate. Simplicity creates space for genuine connection because the relationship is no longer built on need, but on presence. Even in ambition, living with less brings freedom. There is nothing wrong with striving for goals, but when ambition turns into endless craving, it robs you of peace. You reach one milestone, and instead of resting, you immediately chase the next. You tell yourself, I will be happy when I get there, but happiness never comes because there keeps moving. When you learn to live with less ambition, not no ambition, but less craving in your ambition, you find joy in the process instead of only in the outcome. You work not because you need success to prove your worth, but because the act itself brings meaning. This subtle shift transforms the entire experience of life. Gratitude and simplicity are deeply connected. Gratitude is the art of seeing what is already here. Simplicity is the art of releasing what is unnecessary. Together, they create a powerful truth. You already have enough. You do not need 10 pairs of shoes to feel content when one pair serves you well. You do not need endless recognition when a single kind word can warm your heart. You do not need to control the future when you are fully alive in the present. Gratitude fills you, simplicity frees you, and together they reveal that joy has always been available, hidden beneath the clutter of more. The Buddha himself lived this truth. Born into wealth and privilege, he walked away from it all in search of freedom. He discovered that joy does not come from adding to life, but from subtracting from it. By letting go of unnecessary desires, unnecessary possessions, unnecessary illusions, he discovered the deepest abundance of all, the abundance of peace. His life is a reminder that simplicity is not poverty, it is richness of a different kind. It is the richness of a mind unburdened, a heart uncluttered, a spirit free. Ask yourself honestly, how much of your suffering comes not from what you lack, but from carrying too much, too many expectations, too many possessions, too many regrets, too many worries? What would happen if you began to let them go one by one? What would happen if you chose less over more? You would not lose richness, you would gain it, because richness is not measured by what you hold, but by how light you feel when you walk through life. Freedom is not the result of adding more layers to your existence. Freedom is the result of peeling them away. When you simplify, you create space for what truly matters. Peace, love, presence, awareness. You realize that life is not about accumulation, but about awakening. And once you taste this freedom, the craving for more begins to dissolve. You no longer live in restless hunger, because you finally understand the truth. Less is not emptiness, less is clarity, less is freedom, less is enough. So when the world urges you to chase more, pause and ask yourself, what if happiness is not in adding, but in subtracting? What if freedom is not in holding on, but in letting go? What if the life you dream of is not beyond the horizon, but right here, beneath the clutter, waiting to be uncovered? The answer, if you listen closely, will guide you back to simplicity. And in that simplicity, you will discover a freedom so profound that life itself will never feel the same again. 11th, the power of silence and stillness within. In today's world, silence has almost disappeared. Our lives are filled with noise, noise from conversations, noise from technology, noise from endless responsibilities, noise from the constant hum of our thoughts. From the moment we wake up, we are surrounded by distractions. notifications buzz, messages arrive, the news shouts, social media floods us with images, and our minds rarely get a single moment of rest. Even when the outer world is quiet, our inner world is often noisy as thoughts race from one worry to the next, one memory to another, one desire to another. Many people do not even realize how deeply this noise affects them because they have never experienced the alternative. They have never experienced the profound peace that comes when the mind is silent and the heart is still. Buddhism teaches us that silence and stillness are not empty. They are full of wisdom, full of peace, full of freedom. Most people fear silence. They avoid it, often without knowing why. When they are alone in a quiet room, they reach for their phone. When they have nothing to do, they distract themselves with television or chatter. Why? Because silence forces us to face ourselves. It strips away the outer noise and leaves us with what is inside, and for many that is uncomfortable. Old regrets, unhealed wounds, and restless cravings rise to the surface. But what we run from is often what we need most. Silence is not the enemy. Silence is the space in which healing happens. When you allow yourself to sit in stillness without distraction, you create the conditions for clarity, peace, and insight to emerge. The Buddha often sought solitude, retreating into forests and mountains because he understood the power of silence. In silence, the mind slows down. The endless chatter of thoughts begins to fade, like ripples on a pond settling into calm water. And when the water is still, you can finally see clearly. In the same way, when the mind becomes still, you begin to see the truth of your own life. You see the patterns that keep you trapped, the illusions that cause your suffering, the beauty that has always surrounded you, but that you never noticed. Stillness does not create truth, it reveals it. Think of a storm. When the wind howls and the rain crashes, you cannot see clearly. But after the storm passes, the sky clears, and suddenly the stars appear, bright and endless. Your mind is like that sky. When it is stormed with thoughts, worries, and noise, you cannot see your own wisdom. But when you allow stillness, the stars of clarity begin to shine. This is why silence is so powerful. It reconnects you to the wisdom that was always within you, waiting to be heard. In silence, you also discover the richness of the present moment. When you are not distracted by constant noise, you begin to notice the subtleties of life. The sound of your own breathing, the rustle of leaves, the warmth of sunlight, the beating of your heart. These simple things, often overlooked, reveal themselves as miracles. You realize that life has been offering you beauty all along. You were just too busy to notice. Stillness makes the ordinary extraordinary because it awakens your awareness. Silence is also a teacher of humility. In noise, the ego thrives. It wants to speak, to be seen, to be heard, to prove itself. But in silence, the ego loses its grip. You begin to realize that you are not the endless voice in your head. You are not your opinions, your judgments, or your chatter. Beneath all of that, there is a deeper self, an awareness that is spacious, calm, and free. Silence introduces you to that self. It shows you that you are not defined by your thoughts. You are the space in which thoughts arise and pass. This realization is profoundly liberating because it means you are not trapped by your mind. You are free from it. For many, silence feels difficult at first. Sitting still with nothing to distract you may bring up discomfort, boredom, or even fear. But if you stay with it, if you allow yourself to pass through the discomfort, you will discover that silence is not empty. It is full of peace, full of presence, full of depth. It is like entering a dark room and waiting for your eyes to adjust. At first, you see nothing, but slowly, details emerge, shapes appear. You realize the room was never empty. It was your perception that was limited. The same is true with silence. At first, it feels like emptiness, but with time, you realize it contains everything you need. Practicing silence and stillness does not require abandoning your life. You do not need to retreat into a cave or monastery to experience it. You can begin in small ways, by taking a few minutes each day to sit quietly, without a phone, without music, without distraction. Simply breathe and be. You can walk in nature and listen not with your ears but with your entire being. You can eat a meal in silence, fully tasting each bite. These small acts of stillness gradually reintroduce you to the peace you have been missing. Over time, silence becomes not just a practice but a refuge. Whenever life feels overwhelming, you know you can return to it. You can step away from the noise and rest in the stillness of your own being. This refuge is always available to you, no matter where you are or what is happening around you. Even in the midst of chaos, you can touch that inner silence. You can breathe, let go, and return to the calm center within yourself. Silence also deepens relationships. In our conversations, we often focus on speaking, on being heard, on filling the space with words. But sometimes, the most powerful connection happens in shared silence. Sitting quietly with someone without needing to fill the air creates a deeper intimacy than words ever could. It is a reminder that presence is more important than performance, that being with someone is more valuable than impressing them. When you are comfortable in silence with another, you are truly at ease. The power of silence goes beyond the personal. It also creates space for compassion and wisdom to emerge in the world. Many conflicts, both personal and global, are fueled by people who speak without listening, who react without pausing. If more of us could cultivate silence, pausing before reacting, listening before speaking, the world would be a gentler place. Silence allows us to respond from wisdom instead of impulse, from compassion instead of anger. It turns reaction into reflection, and reflection into understanding. In the end, silence and stillness are not luxuries. They are necessities. Without them, life becomes overwhelming, and we lose ourselves in the noise. With them, life becomes clear, peaceful, and meaningful. Silence is where you meet yourself, where you hear the quiet voice of wisdom, where you discover that beneath the chaos of the world, there is always a calm center waiting for you. The greatest freedom you will ever know is not found in controlling the world, not in achieving endless goals, not in filling your life with noise. It is found in the simple act of sitting still, breathing deeply, and realizing that in this silence you are already whole, you are already free, you are already home. And once you discover this truth, you will never look at silence the same way again. Instead of fearing it, you will welcome it. Instead of avoiding it, you will seek it. Because in silence, you will have found what the world could never give: peace. 12. The path of compassion, freedom through caring for others. There is a quiet truth that every wise teacher eventually discovers. You cannot find true peace by living only for yourself. The human heart, when closed and self-centered, becomes a prison. It obsesses over personal fears, personal desires, personal struggles, and in this endless self-concern, life feels heavy and suffocating. But when the heart opens to others, when compassion begins to flow outward, something remarkable happens. The very suffering that once weighed you down begins to lighten. You stop drowning in your own concerns because you recognize that you are not alone in your struggles. You see that all beings share the same longing for happiness, the same fear of pain, the same vulnerability of existence. And from this realization, compassion arises. Buddhism teaches that compassion is not weakness, nor is it pity. Compassion is strength. It is freedom. It is the recognition that your life finds its deepest meaning when it is no longer just about you. Most people misunderstand compassion. They think it means sacrificing yourself completely, neglecting your needs to serve others, or constantly saying yes when your heart says no. But true compassion is not self-destruction. True compassion is balance. It begins with kindness toward yourself and then extends naturally to others. If you are harsh with yourself, your compassion for others will be limited. But if you learn to forgive your own mistakes, to treat yourself gently, to see your own humanity with kindness, then your heart naturally expands. The compassion you cultivate within spills outward, embracing family, friends, strangers, even those who hurt you. The Buddha taught that compassion is the path to liberation because it dissolves the illusion of separateness. We often believe we are isolated individuals, disconnected from others, competing for survival in a harsh world. But when you look deeper, you see that your life is interwoven with all life. The food you eat comes from farmers you may never meet. The clothes you wear were made by countless hands across the world. The breath in your lungs comes from the trees that give oxygen, and those trees are nourished by sunlight, rain, and earth. Nothing exists independently. Everything is connected. When you awaken to this truth, compassion is no longer a choice. It is a natural response to the reality of life. Compassion transforms suffering, both yours and others. When you are caught in your own pain, your world feels small. But when you shift your attention to helping someone else, your pain loses some of its weight. Think of a time you were suffering deeply, yet you chose to comfort a friend. For that moment, your pain softened because your heart was focused outward. Compassion does not erase your struggles, but it gives them meaning. It teaches you that even your wounds can be used to heal others. Your pain becomes the bridge that connects you to others' pain, and in that connection, both hearts are strengthened. Compassion also dissolves anger and resentment. It is easy to hate those who hurt you, but hate only deepens your suffering. Compassion allows you to see that those who hurt others are often themselves hurting, lost, or blind. This does not mean excusing their actions or allowing harm. It means recognizing that behind cruelty is usually confusion and suffering. Compassion gives you the strength to let go of hatred, to act with justice without being poisoned by bitterness. In this way, compassion protects your own peace, even in the face of injustice. Living with compassion also changes the way you experience the world. Imagine walking through life with a heart closed by judgment. Everywhere you go, you see enemies, rivals, and strangers. Life feels cold and hostile. Now imagine walking through life with a heart open in compassion. Everywhere you go, you see fellow travelers, each carrying their own burdens, each longing for happiness, just like you. Life feels warmer, softer, more connected. The world itself does not change, but your experience of it does, because compassion changes the lens through which you see everything. Compassion does not always have to be grand or dramatic. It can be as simple as a smile offered to a stranger, a kind word spoken when someone is struggling, a small act of patience when you feel irritated. These small gestures may seem insignificant, but they ripple outward in ways you cannot measure. A kind word can shift the course of someone's day. A patient response can prevent an argument. A moment of understanding can save someone from despair. Compassion plants seeds, and those seeds grow far beyond what you can see. Practicing compassion also heals relationships. Many conflicts arise because we are too focused on being understood and not focused enough on understanding. Compassion reverses this. It teaches us to listen more deeply, to see beyond the surface, to recognize the pain and fear that often drive others' actions. When you respond with compassion instead of judgment, you create space for healing. Even in relationships where wounds run deep, compassion can soften the walls that seem impossible to break. Buddhism often speaks of the practice of metta, or loving-kindness meditation. In this practice, you sit quietly and send thoughts of kindness and well-being to yourself, to loved ones, to strangers, and even to those with whom you struggle. May I be happy. May I be free from suffering. May all beings be happy. May all beings be free from suffering. At first, this may feel forced, but over time it transforms the heart. It teaches you that compassion is not just a feeling, it is a practice, a choice you can cultivate daily. And as you do, it begins to shape who you are. Compassion also brings humility. It reminds you that you are not the center of the universe and that your struggles, while real, are part of the vast web of human experience. This humility is not demeaning, it is liberating. It frees you from the prison of ego, from the endless focus on me and mine. It allows you to step into a larger perspective where you are part of something greater. In this perspective, life feels less lonely because you recognize that everyone is walking their own difficult path. Compassion connects those paths, weaving them into a shared journey. The greatest paradox of compassion is that in giving to others, you also receive. When you open your heart, you do not lose energy, you gain it. Compassion energizes because it aligns you with your true nature. Human beings are not meant to live in isolation or self-obsession. We are meant to live in connection, in community, in love. When you live with compassion, you live in harmony with this truth, and that harmony brings joy. So ask yourself, how much lighter would your life feel if you carried less judgment and more compassion? How much freer would you be if, instead of holding grudges, you offered understanding? How much richer would your days feel if you saw every person not as an enemy or stranger, but as a fellow being trying just like you to find peace? The Buddha once said, "If your compassion does not include yourself, it is incomplete." Begin there, with yourself. Speak to yourself with kindness. Forgive your own mistakes. Treat yourself gently. And then, from that place of self-compassion, let your care extend outward. Begin with those closest to you. Then expand it to those you barely know. And eventually, let it reach even those you find difficult to love. This is the true path of compassion. It is not about who deserves your kindness. It is about becoming a person whose heart naturally radiates it. In the end, compassion is not just about helping others. It is about setting yourself free. Because when you live in compassion, you are no longer trapped in the prison of ego, anger, and judgment. You are free from the chains of self-centered suffering. You discover that the surest way to heal your own pain is to open your heart to the pain of others. And in that opening, you find a joy, a peace, and a freedom that no amount of self-chasing could ever give. The path of compassion is the path of liberation. It is the reminder that in caring for others, you also care for yourself. In healing others, you also heal yourself. And in loving others, you finally remember that love was always within you, waiting to be shared. 13th, impermanence, the gentle teacher of life's truth. If there is one truth that lies at the heart of all Buddhist teachings, it is impermanence. Everything in life, without exception, is in a constant state of change. Seasons shift, rivers flow, mountains erode, flowers bloom and wither, stars are born and die, bodies grow and age, relationships begin and end. Nothing remains exactly as it is, and yet, most of our suffering comes from forgetting or resisting this truth. We cling to what we love as if it will last forever, and when it changes, we feel betrayed. We fear losing what we have, and this fear steals our peace, even while we still hold it. Impermanence, when ignored, feels cruel. But when understood, it becomes one of life's greatest teachers, showing us how to live with presence, humility, and deep appreciation. From the moment we are born, we begin to age. From the moment the sun rises, it begins to set. From the moment a flower opens, it is already moving toward its wilting. Impermanence is not something that happens occasionally. It is happening all the time. The problem is not impermanence itself. The problem is our refusal to accept it. We cling to the illusion of permanence because it feels safe. We want to believe that our youth will remain, that our loved ones will always be here, that our successes will not fade. But reality does not bend to our illusions. When change comes, as it always does, we suffer, not because change is wrong, but because we resisted what was always inevitable. Buddhism teaches us that impermanence is not a curse, but a blessing. Imagine a world where nothing ever changed. There would be no growth, no renewal, no possibility for transformation. Pain would never heal, mistakes would never fade, and life would become stagnant. Impermanence is what allows you to grow, to evolve, to leave behind what no longer serves you. It is what allows the darkest night to give way to dawn, the harshest winter to soften into spring, the hardest moments of your life to eventually pass. When you embrace impermanence, you realize that no storm lasts forever, and this truth alone can carry you through your hardest days. But impermanence also teaches us to cherish what we have while we have it. Too often, we take life for granted. We assume that the people we love will always be there, that our health will always remain, that today will repeat itself tomorrow. But nothing is guaranteed. Every breath, every moment, every connection is temporary. This is not meant to make you fearful. It is meant to awaken gratitude. When you remember impermanence, you stop postponing joy. You stop waiting for the perfect time to live, to love, to appreciate. You begin to savor the present, knowing it will not last forever. The very fragility of life is what makes it precious. Think of a cherry blossom tree. Its flowers bloom beautifully, but only for a short season. People travel great distances just to witness this brief display of beauty, precisely because they know it is fleeting. If the blossoms lasted forever, they would not be as cherished. Life is like that blossom. Its impermanence is not a flaw. It is the source of its beauty. When you realize this, you begin to live differently. You cherish conversations, sunsets, laughter, even simple moments, because you know they will not come again in the exact same way. Impermanence also softens our attachment to suffering. When you are in pain, it feels eternal. You believe the sadness, the fear, the loss will last forever. But impermanence reminds you that everything passes, even the deepest suffering. No matter how heavy the storm feels, it too will move on. This truth gives you strength to endure, knowing that pain is not permanent. And when joy comes, impermanence reminds you to savor it fully without clinging, because it too will pass. In this way, impermanence balances both joy and sorrow, teaching us to neither cling desperately to the good nor despair endlessly in the bad. The fear of impermanence often makes us cling tighter. We cling to youth, trying to preserve it with endless effort. We cling to relationships, trying to control them so they will not change. We cling to achievements, trying to freeze them in place as proof of our worth. But clinging does not stop impermanence. It only magnifies suffering. Imagine holding water in your hands. The tighter you squeeze, the faster it slips through your fingers. But if you hold it gently, it remains for a while, and you can appreciate it fully. Life is the same. You cannot stop it from flowing, but you can choose to hold it gently, to appreciate it without desperate grasping. Impermanence also teaches us humility. We often live as if we are immortal, as if we have unlimited time. We postpone what truly matters, telling ourselves, "I will be happy later, I will love later, I will rest later." But later is never promised. When we remember impermanence, we realize that our time here is limited, and that realization awakens urgency, not the frantic urgency of chasing more possessions or accomplishments, but the gentle urgency of living authentically, of aligning with what truly matters. Impermanence strips away illusions and reminds us of what is real. In relationships, impermanence teaches us to love more deeply. Knowing that our loved ones will not be with us forever makes their presence more precious. Instead of taking them for granted, we hold them close, we speak our gratitude, we forgive more easily. We stop wasting time on petty arguments and begin to focus on what truly matters: connection, presence, love. Paradoxically, impermanence deepens love because it reminds us that every moment together is a gift, not a guarantee. On a deeper level, impermanence also challenges the illusion of the self. We often think of ourselves as fixed identities. This is who I am, this is what I will always be. But when we look closely, we see that even we are changing moment by moment. The cells in our bodies are constantly renewing. Our thoughts, emotions, and beliefs shift over time. The person you were 10 years ago is not the same person you are today. If you try to cling to a fixed idea of me, you will suffer. But if you embrace the impermanence of self, you realize you are free to change, to grow, to reinvent yourself. You are not trapped by your past. You are a river, always flowing, always becoming. Meditating on impermanence can be both unsettling and liberating. At first, the thought that everything changes can feel like loss, but with practice, it becomes a source of deep peace. Because if everything changes, then nothing can hold you forever, not your fears, not your mistakes, not even your suffering. And if everything changes, then each moment becomes a miracle, because it will never come again. Impermanence turns life into a series of precious gifts, each one unique, each one unrepeatable. The more you live with awareness of impermanence, the lighter life becomes. You stop clinging to the past because you know it is gone. You stop fearing the future because you know it is uncertain. You stop trying to control what cannot be controlled because you see that change is the nature of everything. Instead, you learn to ride the waves of life with grace, flowing with its currents instead of resisting them. This is not resignation, it is wisdom. It is the wisdom of aligning yourself with reality instead of fighting it. So ask yourself, what would change in your life if you fully embraced impermanence? Would you cherish your loved ones more deeply, knowing your time with them is finite? Would you live more authentically, knowing that tomorrow is not promised? Would you forgive more quickly, knowing that life is too short for grudges? Would you savor the simple beauty of each day, knowing it will not come again? Impermanence is not meant to frighten you. It is meant to wake you up. It is meant to shake you free from distraction, from arrogance, from complacency, and to remind you that this life, fragile and fleeting as it is a gift beyond measure. When you embrace impermanence, you stop wasting time waiting for the perfect moment. You realize the perfect moment is always now. The Buddha once said, "All conditioned things are impermanent. When one sees this with wisdom, one turns away from suffering." This teaching is the key to freedom. The more you cling, the more you suffer. The more you accept impermanence, the more you find peace. Because in the end, life's beauty is not found in holding on. It is found in letting go, in flowing with change, in cherishing the fragile miracle of now. Impermanence is the gentle teacher that whispers, "Nothing lasts forever, so love deeply, live fully, let go gracefully." If you listen to this teacher, your life will never feel the same again. Instead of fearing change, you will welcome it. Instead of clinging, you will appreciate. Instead of resisting, you will flow. And in that flow, you will discover a peace that is deeper than anything permanence could ever give. 14th Detachment, the art of holding life lightly. Human beings cling. We cling to people, to possessions, to achievements, to identities, and even to the stories we tell ourselves about who we are. We cling because we believe that by holding tightly, we can prevent loss, prevent change, prevent pain. Yet, ironically, clinging is the very thing that guarantees our suffering. The tighter we grip, the more life resists, the more we exhaust ourselves, and the more we feel the sting of loss when the inevitable changes arrive. Buddhism offers a path that feels counterintuitive at first, but is in fact the doorway to true peace, the practice of detachment. Detachment does not mean indifference. It does not mean you stop caring, stop loving, or stop engaging with life. It means you learn to hold everything lightly, with open hands instead of clenched fists. It means you can love deeply without trying to possess, succeed without being enslaved by ambition, enjoy without being consumed by desire. Detachment is the art of participating fully in life without becoming bound by it. When you master detachment, you discover a freedom that no external circumstance can touch. Think about the relationships in your life. Many people confuse attachment with love. They cling tightly to their partners, their children, their friends, believing that holding on will keep them safe. But attachment is rooted in fear, the fear of losing. This fear often manifests as control, jealousy, or dependence, which in turn suffocates the very love we are trying to protect. Detachment, on the other hand, allows love to breathe. It allows you to love someone without needing to own them, without demanding they meet all your expectations, without fearing their change. True love is not, "I cannot live without you." True love is, "I want you to be free, even if your path one day leads away from me." Detachment makes love purer, freer, and stronger. Detachment also applies to possessions. We live in a culture that teaches us to equate our worth with what we own. The more we accumulate, the more successful we believe we are. But possessions bring responsibility, and the more we own, the more we fear losing. This fear can trap us in endless anxiety. Detachment does not require you to abandon all material things. It requires you to no longer be enslaved by them. You can enjoy your home, your car, your clothes, your technology, but you understand that they do not define you. If they are lost, you may feel sadness, but your sense of self remains intact. You no longer cling because you know that nothing external can give you the peace that already exists within. The same is true for achievements and identities. Many people tie their self-worth to their accomplishments, titles, degrees, careers, recognition. They build an identity around being successful, intelligent, attractive, or admired. But these identities are fragile. They depend on external validation, which can disappear at any moment. If you are attached to being successful, then failure will crush you. If you are attached to being beautiful, then aging will torment you. If you are attached to being strong, then sickness will devastate you. Detachment means you no longer confuse who you are with what you achieve. You realize that beneath all roles, all titles, all appearances, you are something deeper, pure awareness, pure being, untouchable by external circumstances. Detachment also changes the way we experience pleasure. Pleasure itself is not the problem. It is natural to enjoy good food, laughter, music, or a sunrise. The problem arises when we cling to these pleasures, demanding that they last forever. When the meal ends, we feel empty. When the moment passes, we feel disappointed. When beauty fades, we feel despair. But life is impermanent, and pleasures, like all things, come and go. Detachment allows you to enjoy them fully in the moment without clinging to them afterward. You savor the sweetness of the fruit, and when it is gone, you let it go. You enjoy the laughter of a friend, and when the moment passes, you release it with gratitude. This way, joy is not diminished, but deepened, because you are fully present without the burden of grasping. The Buddha compared attachment to holding a burning torch against the wind. The tighter you cling, the more you burn yourself. Detachment, on the other hand, is like holding the torch gently, letting the flame glow without harming you. This does not mean you reject life. It means you engage with it wisely. You still work, love, create, and enjoy, but you do so without the chains of fear and clinging. You become free to appreciate life without being enslaved by it. Detachment also helps us face change and loss with grace. When you cling to the belief that things must stay the same, every change feels like death. But when you practice detachment, You accept impermanence as the natural flow of life. You can grieve without collapsing because you understand that everything that arises must eventually pass. You can release without bitterness because you know that clinging only deepens the wound. Detachment is not about avoiding pain. It is about meeting pain with acceptance, allowing it to flow through you without destroying you. On a deeper level, detachment frees you from the prison of desire. Desire is endless. The moment one craving is satisfied, another arises. This cycle never ends, and if you are enslaved by it, you will never find peace. Detachment does not mean you stop having desires. It means you stop being ruled by them. You can have preferences, goals, and dreams, but you are no longer shattered when they do not unfold exactly as you wish. You begin to live with equanimity, a balanced state of mind that remains calm whether life brings gain or loss, praise or blame, joy or sorrow. How do we cultivate detachment? It begins with awareness. Notice when you are clinging, when you are gripping too tightly to a person, a possession, a belief, or an outcome. Ask yourself, what am I afraid of losing? Often beneath attachment lies fear, the fear of emptiness, of being alone, of being unworthy. When you see the fear clearly, you can begin to release it. Mindfulness helps here. Each time you feel the urge to cling, breathe, and allow the moment to pass. Each time you feel the sting of loss, remind yourself that nothing was ever truly yours to own. It was a gift, borrowed for a time, and now returned. Detachment is also cultivated through gratitude. When you appreciate something while you have it, you do not need to cling desperately. You can enjoy it fully in the moment and release it gracefully when it ends. Gratitude transforms clinging into appreciation, possession into presence. The more you practice gratitude, the more natural detachment becomes, because you no longer demand permanence. You simply give thanks for what is. Imagine a bird resting lightly on a branch. It is not afraid because it knows it can fly at any moment. It does not cling desperately to the branch because it trusts its wings. In the same way, detachment teaches you to rest lightly on the branches of life. You can love, work, and enjoy fully, but you are not afraid when change comes because you trust your inner wings. You know that peace does not come from holding tightly to branches. It comes from the freedom of letting go. The paradox of detachment is that it makes life richer, not emptier. When you cling, fear pollutes every joy. Fear of loss, fear of change, fear of not having enough. But when you release clinging, joy becomes pure. You love more deeply because you are not afraid. You live more fully because you are not attached to outcomes. You rest more peacefully because you are not battling against the flow of life. Detachment is not coldness. It is the warmth of freedom. So ask yourself, what are you clinging to right now that is causing you suffering? A relationship you fear losing, an image of yourself you refuse to let go of, a success you cannot release. What would happen if you held it more lightly, if you trusted the flow of life instead of fighting it? The answer is simple. You would feel lighter. You would feel freer. You would discover that the peace you have been chasing was never in holding tighter. It was always in letting go. Detachment is the art of holding life lightly. It does not remove love, joy, or meaning. It removes fear, clinging, and suffering. And when you live with detachment, you discover a freedom so profound that you no longer need to control life because you are at peace with whatever it brings. And in that freedom, life itself becomes lighter, more beautiful, more sacred than you ever imagined. 15. The middle path, walking in balance between all extremes. Human beings are creatures of extremes. We throw ourselves fully into desire or swing violently into denial. We chase endlessly after pleasure, then punish ourselves with guilt. We immerse in work until exhaustion, then collapse into idleness. We cling tightly to people, then withdraw completely in fear of being hurt. Life often feels like a pendulum, swinging back and forth, never finding rest. This constant movement between extremes is one of the main causes of human suffering. Buddhism, however, offers an alternative, a way of walking through life that avoids both excess and deprivation, both overindulgence and harsh self-denial. This is the middle path, the path of balance, wisdom, and inner peace. The Buddha himself discovered the middle path through his own experience. As a young man, he lived in the luxury of a palace, surrounded by comfort, wealth, and pleasure. Yet he realized that indulgence did not bring lasting peace. It left him restless, dissatisfied, and empty. Later, he renounced everything, living as an ascetic, starving himself, punishing his body, and practicing extreme discipline. But this too brought no peace, only suffering and weakness. It was only when he abandoned both extremes and embraced balance that he attained enlightenment. This is the essence of the middle path, the understanding that true peace is not found in extremes, but in balance. Many of us live believing that happiness lies in more success, more money, more possessions, more recognition. We push ourselves relentlessly, thinking that if we just achieve enough, then we will feel complete. But this is the extreme of indulgence. It leaves us constantly craving, never satisfied, always chasing. Others, after being disillusioned by failure or pain, swing to the opposite extreme. They deny themselves joy, punish themselves with guilt, or withdraw from life, thinking that detachment means rejecting the world entirely. But this is the extreme of deprivation. It leaves us empty, bitter, and disconnected. The middle path shows us another way, not too much, not too little, not grasping desperately and not rejecting harshly. Instead, walking steadily with awareness, balance, and acceptance. Think about food as a simple example. Eating too much brings discomfort, heaviness, and disease. Eating too little brings weakness, hunger, and suffering. But eating with balance, nourishing yourself without overindulging, brings health, energy, and clarity. The same principle applies to every part of life. Too much work leads to burnout. Too little work leads to stagnation. Too much discipline becomes rigid and harsh. Too little discipline leads to chaos. The middle path is about finding the balance point where life flows smoothly, where effort meets rest, where discipline meets gentleness, where desire meets contentment. The middle path is not about mediocrity or living half-heartedly. It does not mean you never strive, never push, never enjoy. It means you do these things with wisdom and moderation. You enjoy pleasures without clinging to them. You pursue goals without being enslaved by them. You practice discipline without cruelty toward yourself. You live with awareness, always asking, is this leading me to peace or to suffering? The middle path is a compass, guiding you toward choices that nourish harmony rather than extremes that fuel suffering. One of the greatest gifts of the middle path is freedom from the cycle of craving and aversion. Most people spend their lives swinging between these two forces, craving what they want and pushing away what they dislike. They crave success, comfort, approval, and pleasure. They resist failure, discomfort, criticism, and pain. This constant craving and resisting creates endless turbulence in the mind. The middle path teaches you to meet life as it is, without being dragged by craving or aversion. You can still prefer joy over sorrow, comfort over discomfort, but you are no longer enslaved by them. You learn to walk calmly through both, finding peace not in what happens but in how you meet it. The middle path also teaches us to balance effort and surrender. Some people push themselves relentlessly, always striving, never resting, believing that they must control everything. Others surrender too much, resigning themselves passively, never taking responsibility, believing that they are powerless. The middle path is the balance between the two. It teaches you to act with diligence, but also to trust life, to put forth effort without becoming obsessed with outcomes, to surrender without falling into laziness, to do your best and then release what you cannot control. In this balance, life becomes lighter and peace arises naturally. Relationships too are healed by the middle path. In love, extremes often destroy harmony. Too much attachment suffocates. Too much detachment isolates. Too much giving exhausts. Too much taking destroys trust. The middle path in relationships is about reciprocity, balance, and freedom. It is about loving without possession, caring without losing yourself, giving without neglecting your own needs. When you walk the middle path in love, you create space for both connection and individuality, for both closeness and freedom. The middle path is also a practice of the mind. Our thoughts often swing between extremes. Too much worry about the future, too much regret about the past, too much self-criticism, too much self-indulgence. The middle path of the mind is mindfulness, the awareness that anchors you in the present moment, balancing the restless currents of thought. When the mind wanders too far into worry, you gently bring it back. When it sinks into despair, you gently lift it with kindness. Balance is not about perfection. It is about returning again and again to the steady center. The middle path also teaches us balance between the inner and the outer life. Some people lose themselves entirely in outer pursuits, career, money, recognition, forgetting their inner world. Others retreat entirely into inner reflection, neglecting the outer responsibilities of life. Both extremes create imbalance. The middle path teaches you to care for your inner world through meditation, silence, and awareness, while also caring for your outer responsibilities with integrity and presence. It is not about escaping life, nor about drowning in it. It is about walking both worlds with balance. How do you cultivate the middle path? Begin by observing where you live in extremes. Do you overwork? Do you overindulge? Do you neglect yourself? Do you punish yourself? Awareness is the first step. Then, gently guide yourself toward balance. If you are pushing too hard, soften. If you are withdrawing too much, engage. If you are clinging, release. If you are avoiding, face gently. Balance is a daily practice, a dance between opposites. It is not rigid, it is flexible, responsive, alive. The middle path is not a destination, it is a way of walking. You will stumble into extremes, and that is natural. But each time you notice, you return. Each time you return, you strengthen balance. Over time, you find yourself less tossed about by extremes, more steady in the flow of life. This steadiness is peace. The greatest gift of the middle path is that it frees you from the exhausting pendulum swings of life. You no longer burn yourself out in indulgence, nor drain yourself in deprivation. You live in harmony, in moderation, in wisdom. You discover that peace is not in the extremes, but in the gentle center, where life is embraced fully, without clinging, without resisting. The Buddha described the middle path as the way that leads to seeing, to knowledge, to peace, to direct knowledge, to enlightenment, to nirvana. It is not just a philosophy, it is a lived reality. When you walk this path, life itself becomes lighter. You no longer swing violently between highs and lows. You walk steadily, calmly, peacefully, and in that steadiness you discover the freedom you have always sought, because the truth is, peace was never in having more or less. Peace was always in balance. Peace was always in the middle path. Inner freedom, liberation from the prison of the mind. When most people think of freedom, they think of external circumstances. They think of having financial freedom, freedom of choice, freedom of movement, freedom from obligations. They believe that if they can escape certain conditions, unwanted jobs, difficult relationships, political limitations, financial struggles, then they will finally feel free. And while external freedom is valuable, it is not the deepest kind of freedom. For history shows us that even those who have everything externally, a comfortable life, wealth, recognition, can still feel trapped anxious, and enslaved by their own restless minds. True freedom, Buddhism teaches, is not about escaping the world. It is about liberating yourself from the prison you carry within, the prison of your own mind. The mind, when left untrained, is like a wild horse. It pulls you in every direction, leaving you exhausted and powerless. One moment it drags you into the past, forcing you to relive regrets and mistakes. The next moment it hurls you into the future, filling you with fear and worry. It judges you, criticizes you, compares you to others, bombards you with desires, torments you with doubt. Even in moments of external peace, your mind can create storms so loud that you cannot hear the silence within. And this is why the Buddha said, "It is a man's own mind, not his enemy or foe, that lures him to evil ways." The greatest chains are not around your wrists or ankles, they are in your thoughts. But here lies the liberating truth. Just as the mind can imprison you, it can also set you free. The same mind that pulls you into suffering can, with awareness and training, become your greatest ally. Inner freedom begins when you realize that you are not your thoughts. You are not the endless voice in your head. You are the awareness behind it, the witness who sees thoughts arise and pass like clouds in the sky. When you begin to observe your mind instead of blindly obeying it, the prison bars start to dissolve. You realize that your thoughts do not have to control you. They are visitors, not masters. They come and go, but you remain. Imagine sitting by a river and watching leaves float by. Each leaf represents a thought. Some are pleasant, some are painful, some are trivial. You can choose to jump into the river, chasing after every leaf, exhausting yourself as you try to hold on. Or you can remain on the bank, simply watching them drift. This is the practice of mindfulness. It is the art of watching your thoughts without clinging to them or pushing them away. Over time, this practice reveals a profound truth. You are not the leaves, you are the river. You are not the chatter of the mind, you are the vast awareness in which it all arises. This realization is the beginning of true freedom. Inner freedom also means freedom from craving. Most people live enslaved to their desires. They believe happiness lies in satisfying every craving, eating when hungry, buying when tempted, chasing pleasure when it appears. But craving is endless. The more you feed it, the hungrier it becomes. A new possession excites you for a moment, but soon you want more. A compliment lifts you for an hour, but soon you need another. This cycle is a trap because it convinces you that peace is always one step away, always in the next thing. But when you practice detachment and contentment, you begin to see that peace was never in chasing desires. It was in freedom from their grip. You may still enjoy pleasures, but they no longer enslave you. You are free to desire without being consumed, to enjoy without being addicted, to release without fear. Another prison of the mind is fear. Fear of failure, fear of rejection, fear of loss, fear of death. Fear whispers constantly, shaping our choices, limiting our courage, and keeping us small. Yet when you examine fear closely, you see that it is mostly an illusion. It is the mind imagining scenarios that have not yet happened. It is the future stealing your present. The Buddha taught that courage is not the absence of fear, but the wisdom to see through it. When you meet fear with awareness, you realize that it loses its power. You may still feel its presence, but it no longer dictates your actions. This is freedom, to act not from fear, but from clarity. Anger is another chain of the mind. When someone hurts you, the mind insists you must hold on to resentment, that forgiveness would make you weak. But anger does not imprison the other. It imprisons you. It poisons your peace, keeps wounds open, and drags you back into the past. Inner freedom is found when you release anger, not because the other deserves forgiveness, but because you deserve peace. Forgiveness is not approval of what happened. It is the refusal to let the past chain you any longer. Inner freedom also comes from realizing the impermanence of everything. The mind clings desperately to people, possessions and circumstances, fearing their loss. But when you embrace impermanence, you no longer live in fear. You understand that change is natural, that loss is inevitable, and that clinging only deepens suffering. With this acceptance, you can enjoy what you have fully, without fear of its end. You can let go when the time comes, without collapsing. You are free because you flow with life instead of resisting it. Meditation is the most powerful path to inner freedom. In meditation, you step back from the endless noise of the mind and rest in pure awareness. At first, the noise may seem louder because you are finally paying attention. But with practice, the noise softens, the thoughts lose their grip, and a stillness arises. In that stillness, you taste freedom, the freedom of not needing to chase, not needing to resist, not needing to control, the freedom of simply being. Meditation shows you that beneath the restless waves of thought, there is always an ocean of peace within you. That ocean is your true nature, and once you learn to rest in it, nothing outside of you can imprison you again. To live in inner freedom does not mean you will never feel pain, fear, or desire. It means you will no longer be enslaved by them. You may feel sadness, but you do not drown in it. You may feel fear, but you act with courage anyway. You may feel desire, but you are not consumed by it. You live with awareness, balance, and choice. This is true liberation, not escape from life, but freedom within life. Think of a bird flying in the open sky. It may face storms, winds, and obstacles, but the sky is vast, and the bird is free to move within it. Your mind, when liberated, is like that sky. Thoughts may arise, challenges may come, but you remain vast, spacious, free. You are no longer trapped by the storms. You are the sky in which they appear. So ask yourself, what chains of the mind are holding you right now? Is it fear, anger, desire, regret, comparison? What would your life feel like if those chains were broken? The answer is not in changing your external circumstances. The answer is in awakening to your own awareness, your own freedom. Because the prison was never outside, it was always inside, and the key was always in your hands. The Buddha taught that liberation is possible for everyone, not just monks or sages. You do not need to abandon your life, your family, or your responsibilities. You need only to awaken, to train the mind, to cultivate awareness, to practice letting go. Every breath, every step, every moment is an opportunity to practice freedom. Each time you choose awareness over reaction, forgiveness over anger, contentment over craving, you loosen the chains a little more. And one day, you realize the chains were never as strong as you believed. Inner freedom is the highest freedom because no one can take it from you. Governments may restrict you, circumstances may limit you, people may misunderstand you, but if your mind is free, you remain untouched. You can be in a palace or a prison surrounded by luxury or by nothing at all and still feel the same peace because your freedom does not depend on what is outside. It comes from within, from the stillness of awareness, from the wisdom of letting go. And when you find this freedom, life itself changes. You are no longer a prisoner of your mind, you are its master. You are no longer tossed about by cravings and fears. You are steady. You are no longer running endlessly. You are at rest. And in this rest, you discover the deepest truth, that you were always free, always whole, always enough. You had only forgotten. To remember this truth is to awaken. To live this truth is to be liberated. And once you taste this freedom, you will know that nothing in the world can compare. Because in the end, the greatest journey you will ever take is not across oceans or mountains. It is the journey inward to free yourself from yourself. The illusion of the self, awakening to who you truly are. If you ask most people who they are, they will answer with their name, their job, their relationships, their achievements, or their story. They will say, I am a teacher, I am a mother, I am an artist, I am successful, I am a failure, I am someone who has suffered. These labels may describe certain aspects of your life, but they are not the essence of who you are. They are roles, identities, and stories, constantly shifting with time and circumstance. The truth is that the self we cling to, the one we spend so much energy defending, proving, and perfecting, is not as solid as it appears. Buddhism teaches that the self is an illusion, not a complete non-existence, but an illusion created by the mind, like a mirage that looks real but disappears when you look closely. To awaken to this truth is to free yourself from the deepest source of suffering. The Buddha taught the concept of anatta, no self. This does not mean you do not exist. It means that the permanent, unchanging I you believe in is not real. Look closely, and you will see that what you call me is constantly changing. Your body is not the same as it was when you were a child. Every cell has changed countless times. Your thoughts are not the same. They shift moment by moment. Your emotions, beliefs, and desires all come and go. Even your personality evolves with time. If everything about you is changing, then where is the fixed, permanent self? When you search for it, you cannot find it. What you find instead is a flowing process, an ever-changing dance of body, mind, and experience. The illusion of self is the root of much suffering. Because we believe in a solid me, we cling desperately to things that reinforce it. We crave recognition so others can validate our sense of self. We fear criticism because it threatens the story we hold about who we are. We cling to youth and beauty because we identify with the body. We hold grudges because we cannot let go of the insult to me. All of these attachments revolve around defending an identity that does not truly exist. It is like guarding a shadow, exhausting and endless, yet ultimately empty. Awakening to the illusion of self does not mean you lose your individuality or your humanity. It means you see through the false solidity of identity. You realize that you are not limited to the stories you tell yourself. You are not defined by your past, by your mistakes, by your successes, or even by your name. Beneath all these labels, you are something far more spacious, pure awareness itself. Awareness is not bound by stories. It is the silent witness of all that arises. The body, the thoughts, the emotions, the roles. Awareness is unchanging, while everything else changes. To realize this is to step out of the prison of ego and into the vastness of true being. Consider the example of a wave in the ocean. The wave rises, takes shape, and eventually falls back into the sea. For a moment it has a form, a height, a name, a shape. But it was never separate from the ocean. Its existence was always dependent on the ocean. In the same way, what you call me is like a wave in the vast ocean of existence. It has a temporary form, but it is not separate, not permanent. When you cling to the wave as if it is everything, you suffer because you fear its end. But when you realize you are the ocean, not just the wave, you find peace. The illusion of self also fuels comparison. Because we believe in a solid me, we measure ourselves against others. Am I better? Am I worse? Am I more successful, more attractive, more worthy? These comparisons create endless dissatisfaction. But when you see that the self is not solid, the need to compare softens. You realize that just as waves rise and fall differently but remain the same ocean, people have different forms and experiences but share the same essence. This dissolves envy and pride, replacing them with compassion and humility. On a practical level, awakening to no self brings incredible freedom. Imagine how much energy you spend protecting your identity, defending your opinions, proving your worth, hiding your flaws, maintaining your image. All of this is heavy work. But when you see through the illusion, you no longer need to fight so hard. You realize you do not need to be perfect, because there is no permanent you that needs protecting. You realize you do not need to cling to achievements, because they do not define your essence. You realize you do not need to fear change, because change is the nature of life, not a threat to who you are. This release brings a lightness you may never have felt before. Meditation is the doorway to experiencing no self directly. In meditation, you watch thoughts, feelings, and sensations arise and pass. You begin to see that none of them are truly me. They are experiences appearing in awareness, like clouds passing through the sky. The more you observe, the more you realize that there is no solid self behind them, just a flow of ever-changing phenomena. This realization can feel unsettling at first because the ego fears its own dissolution. But soon, it becomes liberating. You realize that if there is no solid self, then there is nothing to defend, nothing to prove, nothing to fear losing. You are free to simply be. Awakening to no self also transforms relationships. When you no longer see yourself as a separate solid I, you also no longer see others as separate yous. You recognize the interconnectedness of all beings. You realize that just as you suffer and long for happiness, so does everyone else. This deepens compassion because the boundary between self and other begins to dissolve. Helping others becomes as natural as helping yourself, because at the deepest level there is no separation. This is why the Buddha said, "When the self is not there, the world is in peace." Another gift of realizing no self is freedom from fear of death. The ego clings desperately to life because it believes in a permanent self that must survive. Death feels like the ultimate threat. But when you realize that there is no solid self to begin with, death loses its sting. The body will change, the mind will dissolve, but the awareness that you are, the ocean behind the wave, was never born and never dies. Death is simply another transformation, another change in the endless flow of impermanence. To see this is to live without fear, to embrace life fully, knowing that nothing essential can be lost. So how do you live with the understanding of no self in daily life? You live more lightly. You take yourself less seriously. You laugh more, forgive more, let go more easily. You no longer need to prove your worth because you see that worth was never tied to identity. You no longer cling to roles because you know they are temporary masks. You no longer fear change because you know there is no fixed you to be destroyed by it. Instead, you flow with life, open and free. The illusion of self is strong, and it will pull you back again and again. But each time you remember, each time you glimpse the truth, the grip loosens a little more. You begin to live with the awareness that I am not my thoughts, I am not my emotions, I am not my roles, I am awareness itself. And in that awareness, there is peace. To awaken to no self is not to lose yourself. It is to find your true nature. It is to realize that you are not a fragile, separate identity struggling in an uncaring world. You are the vast awareness in which all of life unfolds. You are the ocean, not just the wave. You are freedom itself. And once you realize this, life will never feel the same again. Interconnectedness, the web that holds all life together. Most people move through life believing they are separate beings, isolated in their own skin, cut off from others and from the world around them. This belief shapes the way we live. We compete instead of cooperate. We hoard instead of share. We harm the earth as if it were not part of us, and we treat others as if their suffering has nothing to do with ours. This illusion of separateness is perhaps the greatest misunderstanding in human life. Buddhism teaches the opposite. Nothing exists independently. Every being, everything, every breath, every moment is part of a vast web of interconnectedness. To awaken to this truth is to see the world with new eyes. It is to realize that you are not alone, that you have never been alone, and that the well-being of others and the world is inseparable from your own. The Buddha often used the metaphor of Indra's net to describe this truth. Imagine an infinite net stretching in all directions. At every point of the net there is a jewel, and each jewel reflects all the others. Change one jewel, and all are affected. This is reality. Each of us is like a jewel, reflecting and being reflected by countless others. Nothing stands alone. The food you eat was planted by someone you may never meet, nourished by rain that fell from clouds that formed over oceans far away. The air you breathe was produced by trees, sustained by sunlight that traveled millions of miles from the sun. Even your body is not entirely your own. It is made of water, minerals, and elements that have passed through countless forms before becoming part of you. You are a single thread in the great fabric of existence, woven so tightly into the whole that to imagine yourself separate is to misunderstand reality itself. When you awaken to interconnectedness, compassion becomes natural. You realize that the suffering of others is not separate from you. It ripples into your own life. If your community is full of pain, you cannot feel safe. If the earth is destroyed, your body cannot thrive. If others are enslaved by poverty or injustice, the world you live in becomes colder and harsher. But the reverse is also true. When kindness spreads, it touches you too. When peace grows in one heart, it radiates outward. When healing begins anywhere, it strengthens the whole. Recognizing interconnectedness transforms compassion from a moral duty into a natural expression of wisdom. Helping others is not charity. It is taking care of the larger self, the self that includes everyone. Interconnectedness also changes how we see responsibility. Many of us live as if our actions are small and insignificant. We think, what difference does it make if I waste this food? What difference does it make if I speak harshly? What difference does it make if I live only for myself? But when you see the web of life, you realize that every action sends ripples outward. A kind word can inspire hope in someone who passes it on to others. A careless act can trigger harm that spreads beyond what you can imagine. Nothing is isolated. Every choice matters. Every moment is part of the whole. This awareness also reshapes how we see the environment. Many people treat the earth as if it was separate, a resource to be used, a background for human life. But when you realize interconnectedness, you see that the earth is not separate from you. The trees are your lungs, the rivers are your blood, the soil is your flesh, the sun is your energy. To harm the earth is to harm yourself. To heal the earth is to heal yourself. This realization transforms environmental care from an obligation into an act of self-love. You no longer protect nature because it is out there. You protect it because it is part of you. Interconnectedness also dissolves loneliness. Many people feel deeply alone, believing no one understands them, no one shares their struggles. But when you look closer, you realize that your feelings are not unique to you. Your joy, your sorrow, your fear, your longing, these are shared by every human being. The details may differ, but the essence is the same. When you feel pain, you can remember, countless others are feeling this too. When you feel joy, you can remember, countless others are feeling this too. This recognition softens loneliness, replacing it with a sense of belonging to the great human family. Another dimension of interconnectedness is time. You are not just connected to those alive today. You are connected to countless generations before you and those yet to come. The shape of your life is influenced by ancestors you may never know, by their struggles, their resilience, their choices. And the choices you make now ripple forward into the lives of generations yet unborn. When you speak with kindness, you may shape the heart of a child who will one day shape the world. When you harm, that too can echo across time. Interconnectedness reveals that your life is not small. It is part of a vast continuum, stretching backward and forward beyond what you can see. Meditation deepens this truth. When you sit in silence, breathing with awareness, you begin to notice that even your breath is not yours alone. It is part of the exchange of life. You breathe in the oxygen created by trees and plants. You breathe out carbon dioxide that nourishes them in return. Each breath is a reminder of interdependence, of the constant flow between you and the world. The more you practice, the more you feel that the boundary between me and not me is softer than you thought. Your body is porous. Your mind is influenced by countless conditions. Your existence is woven into everything. Interconnectedness also brings humility. It reminds you that you are not the sole author of your life. Every success you claim is built on the contributions of countless others. The food that fueled your effort, the teachers who guided you, the friends who supported you, all of these threads are woven into your achievements. You are not a self-made being, you are a co-created being. This humility is not meant to diminish you, it is meant to free you from arrogance and isolation. It reminds you that gratitude, not pride, is the truest response to life. At the same time, interconnectedness empowers you. If everything is connected, then your actions, however small, matter deeply. A single seed planted can grow into a tree that shades generations. A single act of kindness can ripple outward to touch lives you will never see. A single moment of awareness can shift the energy of an entire room. You may feel small, but you are part of something vast, and every movement within the web matters. This realization gives your life meaning and responsibility. You are not powerless. You are woven into the very fabric of existence. So how can you live with the awareness of interconnectedness? Begin with mindfulness. Notice the connections in your daily life. When you eat, remember the farmers, the earth, the rain, the sun that made your meal possible. When you breathe, remember the trees and oceans that make your breath possible. When you see someone suffer, remember that their pain is not separate from the whole. It touches you too. These small reflections gradually shift the way you see the world. Compassion practices like loving kindness meditation also nurture this awareness. When you send thoughts of well-being, not just to yourself but to all beings, you are training the heart to see beyond separation. You are reminding yourself that every being longs for the same peace, the same freedom. The more you practice, the more natural this perspective becomes. Living with awareness of interconnectedness also means acting with responsibility. You become mindful of your consumption, knowing it affects the earth. You become mindful of your words, knowing they ripple into others' lives. You become mindful of your time, knowing it is precious and shared with all. Each action becomes an opportunity to align with the truth of interdependence. The greatest gift of interconnectedness is that it dissolves the illusion of isolation. You realize that you are not a lone traveler in a hostile world. You are part of a vast web of life, supported and connected in ways beyond imagination. This realization does not remove suffering, but it transforms it. It makes joy richer because it is shared. It makes pain lighter because it is shared. It makes life more meaningful because it is shared. The Buddha once said, "Consider others as yourself." This is not just a moral teaching, it is a statement of reality. Others are yourself. Their well-being is your well-being. Their suffering is your suffering. Their joy is your joy. To awaken to this is to see the world not as a battlefield of separate selves, but as a symphony of interwoven lives. And when you live this truth, life will never feel the same again. You will walk through the world with a softer heart, a lighter spirit, and a deeper sense of belonging. You will see yourself not as an isolated fragment, but as a jewel in the infinite net, reflecting and being reflected by all others. You will discover that the deepest freedom is not in separation, but in connection, and in that connection you will find peace. Dependent origination, how everything arises and passes away. One of the most profound truths taught by the Buddha is the principle of pratatyasamutpada, dependent origination. It is a long phrase, but its meaning is simple and powerful. Nothing exists on its own. Everything arises because of conditions, and everything fades when those conditions change. A seed becomes a tree because of soil, water, sunlight, and time. A thought arises because of memory, perception, and past experiences. A moment of anger appears because of unmet expectations, a sense of self, and the trigger of another's words. Nothing stands alone. Nothing exists independently. Everything is woven into a chain of causes and effects, constantly shifting, constantly flowing. This truth may sound abstract, but it is the key to freedom. Most of us live believing that things are solid and permanent. We think that emotions, identities, relationships, and even suffering are fixed realities. But when you look closely, you see they are not fixed at all. They are processes, conditions coming together in a moment, like waves forming in the ocean. When the conditions change, the wave changes. This means nothing is absolute. Nothing is unchangeable. Everything that arises will eventually pass away. Understanding this dissolves fear, softens clinging, and opens the door to liberation. Consider anger. When someone insults you, anger arises quickly. You may feel as if the anger is you, solid and overwhelming. But if you look deeper, you see that anger is not a permanent entity. It is a chain of conditions. Words were spoken. You interpreted them as an attack. A sense of me felt threatened. Old wounds were triggered. Energy surged through the body. These conditions together created the experience of anger. But when you change the conditions, when you pause, breathe, and observe, the anger fades. It does not live forever. It arises and it passes away. The same is true for all emotions: joy, fear, sadness, desire. They are not who you are. They are passing processes dependent on conditions. Dependent origination also explains suffering. The Buddha taught the chain of 12 links, showing how suffering arises step by step. Ignorance leads to craving, craving leads to attachment, attachment leads to becoming, becoming leads to birth, and birth leads to aging and death, with sorrow, pain, and despair woven through the chain. This may sound heavy, but the point is liberating. Suffering is not random, nor is it permanent. It arises because of conditions, and if those conditions are changed, suffering can dissolve. Just as a fire dies when its fuel is removed, suffering dies when its causes are removed. This truth also applies to happiness. Joy does not arise by accident. It arises when certain conditions are present: gratitude, presence, kindness, connection. When you cultivate these conditions, joy appears naturally. You do not need to chase it endlessly. You need only to create the space for it to arise. This is why Buddhism emphasizes practice, meditation, mindfulness, compassion, ethical living. All of these are conditions that nurture peace. When you practice them, peace arises not by force, but naturally as a result of the conditions you created. Understanding dependent origination also dissolves pride and blame. We often claim credit for successes as if we alone created them. But in truth, every success is a chain of conditions. Your effort, yes, but also the support of teachers, the nourishment of food, the influence of countless people, the gift of life itself. Nothing you achieve is yours alone. This awareness breeds humility and gratitude. In the same way, when others harm you, you realize their actions are also the result of countless conditions: their upbringing, their wounds, their ignorance, their struggles. This does not excuse harm, but it helps dissolve hatred. You see that people act not from pure malice, but from conditions. This awareness gives rise to compassion because you realize that if you had lived with their conditions, you might have acted the same. The principle of dependent origination also reshapes how we see identity. Most people believe in a solid me, but Buddhism shows that even me is dependent on conditions. Your body is made of food, water, and air. Your thoughts are shaped by culture, language, and memory. Your personality is influenced by family, environment, and countless experiences. There is no independent self, only conditions coming together temporarily, like a flame burning as long as fuel is present. When the conditions change, what you call me changes. This realization loosens the grip of ego and makes life lighter, because you no longer need to defend a fixed identity. Meditation reveals this truth directly. As you sit quietly, you observe sensations, thoughts, and emotions arising and passing. You see that nothing lasts, nothing is permanent, nothing exists independently. A thought comes, it has a cause, it fades, it has no permanence. An emotion surges, it has conditions, it passes, it has no solid core. Over time, you realize that clinging to these fleeting processes is the root of suffering, and letting them flow without clinging is freedom. Dependent origination also deepens our understanding of compassion. When you see that people's actions arise from conditions, you stop seeing them as purely good or bad. You see that kindness arises from conditions like love, security, and understanding, while cruelty arises from conditions like pain, ignorance, and fear. Instead of judging harshly, you begin to ask, what conditions led to this? This shifts your focus from blame to healing, from punishment to understanding. If someone is cruel, you can hate the cruelty while also recognizing the suffering that gave birth to it. This does not make you weak, it makes you wise. Interconnectedness and dependent origination also explain why the world is never separate from you. Your actions create conditions that ripple outward. A harsh word creates conditions for anger in another. A kind word creates conditions for peace. Even your inner state matters. Your peace can radiate into a room, changing its atmosphere, while your restlessness can infect others. The web of conditions is vast, and you are always part of it. This realization deepens responsibility. You cannot control everything, but you can choose the conditions you create. Each choice you make is a thread in the fabric of the world. The most liberating aspect of dependent origination is this: because everything arises from conditions, nothing is fixed, no suffering is eternal, no mistake defines you forever, no identity is permanent. Everything can change when the conditions change. This truth gives hope. It means that transformation is always possible. The person you are today is not the person you must be tomorrow. The pain you feel now is not the pain you must always carry. The world as it is does not need to remain as it is. By shifting conditions through awareness, compassion, practice, you shift outcomes. Freedom is not in controlling life, but in changing the conditions that give rise to suffering. So, how do you live with awareness of dependent origination? You begin by paying attention to conditions. Notice what leads to peace in your life and nurture those conditions. Notice what leads to suffering and gently release those conditions. If certain people, habits, or thoughts create restlessness, you step back from them. If certain practices, environments, or choices create peace, you cultivate them. This is the heart of Buddhist practice, not forcing outcomes, but tending conditions. Like a gardener, you cannot demand a flower to bloom, but you can water the soil, give it sunlight, and protect it from harm. In time, the flower blooms naturally. Understanding dependent origination also invites humility about judgment. When you see someone succeed, instead of envy, you recognize the conditions behind it: hard work, opportunities, support. When you see someone fail, instead of scorn, you recognize the conditions, struggles, wounds, circumstances beyond control. This humility softens the heart and brings wisdom. You no longer live in blame or pride, but in awareness of the vast web of causes and effects. The Buddha once said, "When this is, that is. When this ceases, that ceases." These simple words capture the essence of dependent origination. Everything is connected, everything is conditional, nothing exists independently. This truth is not cold or mechanical, it is liberating. Because if suffering has conditions, then peace has conditions too. If pain arises, it will also fade. If anger appears, it can dissolve. Nothing imprisons you forever. When you awaken to this truth, life changes. You stop clinging to illusions of permanence. You stop blaming yourself or others absolutely. You stop believing that your suffering is fixed. Instead, you begin to live with curiosity, asking, what conditions gave rise to this moment? What conditions can I nurture for peace? This way of living transforms life from a battlefield into a garden. You stop fighting reality, and instead, you learn to tend it. Dependent origination is the deepest invitation to wisdom. It asks you to see life not as solid but as flowing, not as separate but as connected, not as fixed but as transformable. And when you live with this awareness, suffering softens, compassion deepens, and peace becomes possible, not someday in the future, but here and now, in this very breath. Because in the end, everything arises, everything passes, everything is connected. And when you see this clearly, life itself will never feel the same again. Nirvana, awakening beyond suffering. For most of our lives, we chase happiness as if it were something just beyond reach. We run after pleasures, possessions, relationships, achievements and dreams, believing that when we finally catch them, we will feel complete. Yet even when we succeed, the satisfaction never lasts. The new possession grows old, the relationship changes, the achievement fades, the pleasure passes. And so the chase begins again. This endless cycle of craving and dissatisfaction is what Buddhism calls samsara, the wheel of suffering. But the Buddha did not stop at diagnosing the problem. He pointed to a solution, a liberation, a freedom beyond the cycle. That freedom is nirvana. Nirvana is often misunderstood. Some imagine it as a heavenly paradise, others as a place you go after death, and others as some mystical experience reserved for saints and monks. But nirvana is not a place, and it is not something waiting for you in a distant future. Nirvana is a state of liberation that is available here and now. It is the extinguishing of the fires that cause suffering, the fires of craving, aversion, and ignorance. It is not annihilation, but awakening, not escape from life, but freedom within life. It is the stillness that arises when you no longer fight reality, the peace that comes when you no longer cling to what changes, the freedom that shines when the mind is no longer enslaved by its own illusions. To understand nirvana, you must first see the nature of suffering. The Buddha identified 3 poisons at the root of all suffering: craving, aversion, and ignorance. Craving is the endless hunger for more pleasure, more recognition, more security. Aversion is the resistance to what we dislike, the pushing away of pain, discomfort, or loss. Ignorance is the blindness to reality, the refusal to see impermanence, no self, and interconnectedness. These 3 forces keep the wheel of suffering turning. But nirvana is the state in which these poisons are extinguished. It is like a fire that has gone out, not because it was destroyed, but because its fuel was removed. When craving, aversion, and ignorance no longer control you, the mind rests in peace. That is nirvana. Imagine holding a burning torch. The flame is hot, restless, consuming. It burns only because there is fuel, wood, oil, oxygen. If the fuel is gone, the fire naturally goes out. You do not need to kill the fire. It simply ceases. In the same way, suffering continues only because it has fuel. When the fuel of craving, aversion, and ignorance is removed, the fire of suffering goes out. What remains is not emptiness, but a profound stillness, clarity, and peace. Nirvana is freedom from clinging. Most of us live chained to desires and fears. We cling to pleasure, to identity, to loved ones, to possessions, terrified of losing them. and we resist pain, loss, and change with all our strength. This clinging and resisting create tension in every moment. But when you let go, when you stop clinging to what is impermanent and stop resisting what is inevitable, the tension dissolves. Life still flows, pleasure comes and goes, pain comes and goes, but you are no longer enslaved by it. You are free because you rest in awareness rather than in clinging. Nirvana is also freedom from the illusion of self. Much of our suffering comes from defending the fragile idea of me. We feel insulted when someone disagrees, anxious when our identity is threatened, desperate to prove ourselves. But when you see that the self is not solid, that it is a flow of conditions, not a permanent entity, the need to defend it vanishes. You realize there is nothing to protect, nothing to prove. This realization brings immense peace. You can still live, act, love, and create, but you do so lightly, without the heavy burden of ego. Some fear that nirvana means indifference, that letting go of craving and aversion means losing passion, love, or joy. But the opposite is true. Nirvana does not make you cold, it makes you free. When you no longer cling, you can love more deeply, because your love is not polluted by fear or possession. When you no longer resist pain, you can face it with courage, because you know it cannot destroy you. When you no longer chase endlessly, you can enjoy life more fully, because you are present instead of restless. Nirvana is not detachment from life. It is the deepest intimacy with life, free from distortion. Nirvana is often described as unconditioned. Everything in the world is conditional. It arises when causes come together and fades when they change. Happiness built on possessions, praise, or success is conditional. It depends on circumstances. But nirvana is beyond conditions. It does not arise from external things. It is discovered when the mind releases its chains. This is why it cannot be lost, because it does not depend on what changes. Nirvana is the freedom of awareness itself, always available, always present, hidden beneath the noise of craving and fear. How can one taste nirvana? The Buddha taught the Noble Eightfold Path as the way. It is not a set of rules, but a path of practice. Right view, right intention, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration. These practices gradually weaken craving, aversion, and ignorance. They cultivate wisdom, ethical living, and mental clarity. Each step on the path brings the mind closer to freedom. Nirvana is not something added to your life. It is revealed when the obstacles are removed. It is like the sun shining behind clouds. The sun was always there. You simply needed to let the clouds pass. In meditation, glimpses of nirvana arise when the mind is deeply still. In those moments, the usual chatter of craving and resistance quiets, and a spacious clarity appears. You feel free from the grip of identity, free from the weight of fear, free from the endless hunger for more. This taste of freedom, however brief, shows you what is possible. Over time, with practice, this freedom becomes less fleeting, more natural. Eventually, it becomes the foundation of your being. Nirvana also transforms how we see death. Most people fear death because they believe it is the end of me. But when you realize that the self was never solid, the fear softens. Life and death are simply transformations of conditions, like waves rising and falling in the ocean. When craving, aversion, and ignorance end, fear of death also ends, because you realize that what you truly are, awareness itself, was never born and never dies. This is why nirvana is sometimes called the deathless. It is the realization that beyond the shifting forms of life, there is a freedom untouched by time. On a practical level, even small steps toward nirvana bring immense peace. Each time you let go of a craving, you taste freedom. Each time you release anger instead of clinging to it, you taste freedom. Each time you see through the illusion of self, you taste freedom. Nirvana is not all or nothing, it is a gradual awakening. Every act of awareness, kindness, and letting go is a doorway. So ask yourself, what fuels your suffering right now? What cravings keep you restless? What fears keep you small? What illusions keep you trapped? What would happen if, even for a moment, you stopped feeding them? What if you allowed yourself to rest in awareness, without clinging, without resisting? The answer is simple. You would feel lighter. You would feel free. You would taste a glimpse of nirvana. The Buddha described nirvana as the highest peace, the supreme happiness, the unshakable freedom of the heart. It is not a distant dream. It is the truth that becomes visible when the fires of craving, aversion, and ignorance are extinguished. And once you taste it, even for a moment, you realize that the freedom you have been chasing outside has always been within. To awaken to nirvana is to step beyond suffering, beyond fear, beyond illusion. It is to live in the world fully, but not be bound by it. It is to discover that the peace you longed for was always your true nature, and once you awaken to this, life will never feel the same again. Mindful living, turning every moment into awakening. When people hear about enlightenment, awakening, or nirvana, they often imagine it as something distant and otherworldly, reserved for saints, monks, or mystics who retreat into mountains or monasteries. They imagine it as a rare flash of transcendence, far removed from the ordinary struggles of daily life. But the Buddha never taught that liberation is only for the few, or only found in rare moments of silence. He taught that awakening can be discovered here, in the middle of your life, in the simplest of acts: walking, breathing, eating, listening, working, speaking. The practice of mindful living is the bridge between the deepest truths of Buddhism and the reality of your everyday life. It is the art of turning each ordinary moment into a step on the path of awakening. Mindfulness means to be fully present, aware of what is happening within you and around you, without judgment and without distraction. It is simple, yet profound. Most people live in a fog of absence, pulled constantly between past and future. They replay regrets, relive old wounds, rehearse future worries, and fantasize about what is not here. Even when their bodies are in the present, their minds are somewhere else. Life passes quickly this way. Days, months, years slip by unnoticed because the mind was never really there. Mindful living brings you back. It calls you to return to this moment, this breath, this step. And in that return, you discover that life is not lacking, it was only overlooked. Think of a simple act like eating. For most people, eating is rushed, distracted, done, while scrolling on a phone or thinking about the next task. Food is swallowed but not tasted, and the mind is far away. But eating mindfully is an entirely different experience. You pause, you look at the food, appreciating the colors, the shapes, the textures. You remember where it came from, the soil, the rain, the sun, the farmers, the hands that prepared it. You take a bite slowly, fully tasting, fully present. Each chew becomes an act of gratitude, each swallow a moment of connection to life. Suddenly, a simple meal becomes sacred. This is the power of mindfulness. It transforms the ordinary into extraordinary. Mindfulness is not only for calm moments, it is especially for challenges. When anger arises, the unmindful mind reacts immediately, speaking harshly, acting impulsively, and creating regret. But the mindful mind pauses. It notices the heat of anger in the body, the racing thoughts, the tightening chest. It breathes. In that pause, awareness appears, and choice returns. You may still feel anger, but you are not controlled by it. You can choose patience instead of reaction, understanding instead of blame. This is mindful living, not the absence of emotions, but the freedom to respond wisely rather than react blindly. Walking can also become a practice of mindful living. Instead of rushing to your destination, lost in thought, you bring awareness to each step. You feel your foot touch the ground, your body balanced, your breath moving in rhythm. You notice the air, the sounds, the sky above. Suddenly, walking is no longer just moving from place to place. It is arriving in each moment. You are no longer traveling through life unconsciously. You are alive to every step. This way of walking is a meditation, and it turns even the most ordinary journey into a path of awakening. The gift of mindfulness is that it brings you back to reality, not the reality of your fears or fantasies, but the reality of this moment, the only moment that truly exists. The past is gone, the future has not yet arrived, and all that is real is now. When you live mindfully, you stop chasing what is not here and start embracing what is. You discover that the present is not empty, it is abundant. The taste of tea, the sound of rain, the breath in your lungs, the warmth of the sun, all of these are miracles, available only when you are present enough to notice them. Mindful living also dissolves the illusion of separation. When you are mindful, you begin to notice how deeply connected you are to everything. Washing dishes, you feel the water that once flowed through rivers. Breathing, you feel the gift of trees and oceans. Speaking, you notice how your words ripple into another's heart. Nothing is small when seen mindfully. Everything is part of the great web of life. This awareness naturally gives rise to compassion, because you cannot be mindful without seeing connection, and you cannot see connection without caring. Many people think mindfulness is only about meditation, but meditation is simply the training ground. Sitting quietly, watching your breath, observing your thoughts, this builds the muscle of awareness. But the true purpose of mindfulness is to carry it into every moment of life. To eat mindfully, walk mindfully, work mindfully, love mindfully. To be present with your child, your friend, your partner, not distracted or half there, but fully alive to the moment. To speak mindfully, choosing words that heal rather than harm. To listen mindfully, hearing not only words but the emotions behind them. This is the essence of mindful living. It is meditation woven into the fabric of life itself. The beauty of mindfulness is that it requires no special conditions. You do not need to wait until you have more time, more money, or more peace. You can practice now, wherever you are, with whatever you are doing. Washing your hands can be mindfulness. Drinking a glass of water can be mindfulness. Waiting in traffic can be mindfulness. Each moment is an opportunity, because mindfulness is not about what you do. It is about how you do it. Mindful living also transforms suffering. When pain arises, the unmindful mind resists, struggles, and magnifies it. Why me? When will this end? The suffering doubles, because now there is not only pain, but also resistance to pain. But the mindful mind observes. It notices the sensation, the tension, the emotion, without judgment. It breathes into it, allowing it to be. In that acceptance, the suffering softens. The pain may remain, but the mind is not tormented by resistance. This is one of the great gifts of mindfulness. It cannot remove every storm, but it teaches you how to sail with them rather than drown. Living mindfully also means slowing down, not in the sense of laziness, but in the sense of presence. In a world that glorifies speed, productivity, and constant activity, slowing down feels radical. But when you slow down, you actually begin to see. You notice details you once missed, the way light falls on the floor, the sound of leaves in the wind, the subtle emotions in someone's eyes. Life becomes richer, not because you have more, but because you notice more. This richness was always there. You were simply moving too fast to see it. Mindfulness also cultivates gratitude. When you are present, you see clearly the gifts already around you. You see that every meal is the work of the earth, the sun, the rain, and countless hands. You see that every breath is a miracle, freely given. You see that even simple moments, sitting, resting, being, are treasures. Gratitude arises naturally when you are mindful, because mindfulness dissolves the blindness of distraction and reveals the abundance of now. On the deepest level, mindful living is not just about paying attention, it is about awakening. Each mindful moment weakens the grip of craving, aversion, and ignorance. Each mindful moment brings you closer to the truth of impermanence, no-self, and interconnectedness. Each mindful moment is a taste of nirvana, because in that moment you are free, free from the past, free from the future, free from illusion. Mindful living is enlightenment lived out in daily life. It is the meeting of wisdom and action, awareness and living. So ask yourself, how much of your life have you missed by not being here? How many meals were eaten without tasting? How many conversations passed without listening? How many moments slipped away unnoticed, lost in thought or distraction? And how would your life change if you began to live mindfully, if you began to arrive in each moment fully with awareness, gratitude, and presence? The answer is simple. Your life would transform. It would not necessarily become free of challenges, but it would become full of richness, depth, and peace. The Buddha once said, "Do not dwell in the past, do not dream of the future, concentrate the mind on the present moment." This is the heart of mindful living. The present is where life happens, where peace is found, where awakening is possible. To live mindfully is to live awake, to no longer sleepwalk through life, but to meet it fully, deeply, joyfully. And once you begin to live this way, even in small steps, you will discover that awakening is not distant, not unreachable. It is here, in your next breath, your next step, your next act of awareness. Awakening is not a destination, it is a way of living. It is mindful living. And when you live this way, life will never feel the same again. Loving kindness, expanding the heart beyond all boundaries. One of the most beautiful teachings in Buddhism is the practice of metta, loving kindness. It is the gentle, boundless, unconditional wish for the happiness and well-being of all beings, including yourself. Loving kindness is not sentimental love, nor is it attachment or desire. It is not about loving only those who please you or who give something back. It is a state of the heart that radiates like sunlight, shining freely without asking for anything in return. Just as the sun does not choose who deserves its warmth, true loving kindness does not discriminate. It is universal, unconditional, and boundless. Many of us misunderstand love. We grow up learning a love that is transactional. I love you because you make me happy. I love you because you belong to me. I love you because you meet my expectations. This kind of love, though common, is fragile. It collapses when expectations are not met, when conditions change, when disappointments arise. True loving kindness is different. It is not based on conditions. It does not say, "I will love you if." It says simply, "May you be happy. May you be free from suffering." It does not depend on what others do. It arises from the recognition that all beings, just like you, long for peace, long for safety, long for joy. The Buddha described loving kindness as the antidote to hatred and fear. Hatred burns like fire, consuming the one who holds it. Fear contracts the heart, making life small and anxious. Loving kindness, on the other hand, expands the heart. It cools the fire of anger, soothes the sting of fear, and opens the space for compassion. When you cultivate loving kindness, you are not only blessing others, you are healing yourself. Because each time you send out goodwill, the first heart it touches is your own. Loving kindness begins with yourself. This may feel strange, even selfish, but it is essential. Many people live with harsh inner voices, constant self-criticism, and deep feelings of unworthiness. They believe that love must always be directed outward, and they treat themselves with neglect or contempt. But if your own heart is wounded, how can it radiate kindness to others? If you cannot forgive yourself, how can you forgive others? Loving kindness begins at home, with the way you speak to yourself, treat yourself, and think about yourself. To sit quietly and repeat, "May I be happy. May I be free from suffering. May I live with ease," is not selfish. It is healing. It is planting seeds of kindness in your own heart, seeds that will later blossom outward. Once you cultivate loving kindness toward yourself, you extend it outward. First, to those you love easily, family, friends, teachers. You hold them in your heart and wish them happiness. Then, to those you feel neutral about, strangers, people you do not know well. Then, more challenging, to those you struggle with, those who have hurt you, those you dislike, those you see as enemies. This is the radical power of loving kindness. It dissolves barriers. It teaches you to see even those who harmed you not as monsters, but as beings caught in their own suffering, beings who, like you, long for happiness, but act from ignorance or pain. This does not mean excusing their actions or allowing harm. It means you release hatred because hatred poisons you. You choose to send them the wish for healing, not because they deserve it, but because love is your true nature. The practice of loving kindness meditation is simple yet profound. You sit quietly, close your eyes, and repeat phrases of goodwill. You begin with yourself. May I be happy. May I be healthy. May I be free from suffering. May I live with ease. Then you extend it to others. May you be happy. May you be healthy. May you be free from suffering. May you live with ease. You visualize them, feel the warmth of love in your heart, and send it outward. With each repetition, the boundaries soften, the heart expands, the sense of separation fades. Over time, this practice reshapes the mind. It makes kindness your natural state, compassion your instinct, love your foundation. The effects of loving kindness reach beyond the meditation cushion. In daily life, it changes how you interact with others. When someone frustrates you, instead of reacting with irritation, you remember they too long for happiness. When someone is unkind, you remember they too are struggling with pain. When someone is joyful, you remember their joy adds to the world's joy. This perspective transforms relationships. Conflicts soften, judgments fade, connections deepen. You begin to see not just individuals, but fellow travelers on the same path of longing and struggle. Loving kindness also transforms how you see yourself. Many people carry wounds of shame, guilt, or self-hatred. They replay old mistakes, believing they are unworthy of peace. Loving kindness dissolves these wounds. It reminds you that you too are a being worthy of love, worthy of forgiveness, worthy of joy. It teaches you that self-love is not arrogance. It is the foundation for all other love. When you can hold yourself in compassion, you stop looking for constant approval from others because you have found approval within. You stop punishing yourself with harshness because you have learned gentleness. You stop fearing rejection because you have found belonging in your own heart. The practice of loving kindness also reveals the illusion of separateness. When you sincerely wish happiness for all beings, without exception, you begin to feel the truth of interconnectedness. You realize that just as you long for peace, so does every being, the child, the stranger, the animal, even the one who harmed you. This realization dissolves the barriers of me and them, friend and enemy. It awakens a deep sense of unity. You begin to live as if the well-being of others is inseparable from your own, because it is. On a practical level, loving kindness has been shown to heal the body and the mind. Modern research confirms what ancient practice has long known. Cultivating loving kindness reduces stress, softens anxiety, and increases resilience. It strengthens empathy, improves relationships, and even boosts physical health by calming the nervous system. But beyond science, its greatest gift is spiritual. It awakens the heart to its true capacity for love. So how can you live with loving kindness in daily life? Begin with small acts. Smile at a stranger. Offer a kind word. Listen fully when someone speaks. Be patient in moments of irritation. These acts may seem small, but they ripple outward. A smile can brighten a day. A kind word can heal a heart. A moment of patience can prevent harm. Each act of loving kindness adds to the collective peace of the world. You can also cultivate it consciously. Begin each day with a moment of loving kindness meditation. Send goodwill to yourself, then to others, then to all beings. Carry that intention through your day, letting it shape your words, your actions, your choices. End your day the same way, sending loving kindness outward before sleep. Over time, this practice becomes natural. It no longer feels like effort, but like your natural way of being. The greatest power of loving kindness is that it frees you from hatred. Hatred is heavy. It poisons the heart, clouds the mind, and keeps wounds alive. Loving kindness does not mean you approve of wrongs, but it means you refuse to let hatred define you. It means you choose peace over poison, healing over harm. And in making that choice, you set yourself free. The Buddha once said, "Hatred does not cease by hatred, but only by love. This is the eternal law." Loving kindness is not weakness. It is the strongest force in the universe. It has the power to transform individuals, relationships, communities, and even nations, because when hearts open, peace becomes possible. So ask yourself, what would your life feel like if you lived with loving kindness as your foundation? What would change if instead of judgment, you offered compassion? Instead of anger, you offered understanding? Instead of fear, you offered love? The answer is simple. You would feel lighter, freer, more at peace. And the world around you would begin to change too, because love ripples outward endlessly. Loving kindness is the practice of expanding the heart beyond all boundaries. It is the realization that love is not limited, not scarce, not conditional. It is infinite, like sunlight, available to all. And when you live in this love, life itself transforms. The world is no longer a battlefield of enemies and strangers. It is a community of fellow beings, each deserving of peace, each worthy of kindness, each connected to your own heart. And once you live this way, with a heart that radiates boundless loving kindness, life will never feel the same again. Compassion, transforming suffering into healing. Loving kindness is the wish for all beings to be happy. Compassion is the wish for all beings to be free from suffering. They are like two wings of the same bird, lifting the heart into freedom. Where loving kindness opens the heart in goodwill, compassion deepens it into courage, the courage to face suffering, to not look away, and to respond with tenderness rather than fear. Buddhism teaches that compassion, karuna, is not a luxury or an optional virtue. It is the very essence of awakening. To awaken is to see suffering clearly, and to allow that vision to move you, not into despair, but into action born of love. Suffering is everywhere. You can see it in the eyes of a stranger, in the struggles of your loved ones, in the quiet pain hidden behind smiles. You can see it in the world, in war, injustice, poverty, disease, and loneliness. At first glance, the vastness of suffering can feel overwhelming, even unbearable. Many people respond by hardening their hearts. They numb themselves, distract themselves, or turn away, believing that to care too much would destroy them. Others respond with despair, drowning in sorrow until they themselves cannot stand. True compassion is neither. It is not numbness, and it is not despair. It is the middle way, a heart that sees suffering clearly, allows itself to feel, and responds with wisdom and love. The Buddha described compassion as the trembling of the heart in the face of suffering. It is not pity which looks down on others. It is not sorrow which paralyzes. It is the recognition that your pain is my pain, your joy is my joy, because at the deepest level we are not separate. When you see someone suffer, compassion arises naturally if your heart is open. It is the instinct to reach out, to comfort, to heal, and when cultivated, it becomes not just a reaction to individual suffering, but a way of seeing the world. You begin to live with the constant wish that all beings be free from pain. Compassion begins with yourself. Many people forget this, thinking that compassion must always be directed outward. But if you cannot face your own suffering with kindness, your compassion for others will be limited. Self-compassion means meeting your own wounds with tenderness, not judgment. It means saying to yourself, I too am a human being. I too suffer. I too deserve love. Instead of punishing yourself for mistakes, you comfort yourself. Instead of denying your pain, you acknowledge it gently. This is not weakness. It is healing. When you can be compassionate toward yourself, you learn how to extend that same gentleness outward. From self-compassion, compassion expands naturally. It begins with those closest to you, the loved ones whose pain you cannot bear to see. But with practice, it grows to include strangers, even those you may never meet. Eventually, it expands to those you struggle with, even those who hurt you. This is the radical power of compassion. It refuses to exclude. It sees suffering not as yours or mine, but as universal. Every being suffers. Every being longs for relief. Compassion is the recognition of this shared humanity, this shared vulnerability. One of the greatest gifts of compassion is that it transforms the way you respond to harm. When someone hurts you, the natural reaction is anger, resentment, or revenge. But anger only deepens suffering. It keeps wounds open, poisons your heart, and perpetuates cycles of harm. Compassion, on the other hand, allows you to see that those who harm others are often themselves caught in suffering. Their cruelty may be born of ignorance, pain, or fear. This does not excuse harm, nor does it mean you allow it. Compassion does not make you passive. It gives you the clarity to act firmly without hatred. It allows you to stand for justice without becoming consumed by bitterness. It transforms conflict because it removes the poison of hate. Compassion also transforms how you see the world's suffering. When you look at war, poverty, or injustice, you may feel helpless, thinking, what can I possibly do? But compassion teaches that even small acts matter. A kind word to someone in despair, a helping hand to someone in need, a prayer for those far away. These may seem small, but they ripple outward in ways unseen. Compassion is not measured by scale, but by sincerity. Each act of compassion plants a seed, and countless seeds together create a forest of healing. Buddhism teaches the practice of compassion meditation, often called karuna bhavana. In this practice, you bring to mind beings who are suffering and send them thoughts of healing. May you be free from suffering. May you be free from pain. May you be free from fear. You begin with someone you love, then extend it to strangers, then even to those you struggle with. Over time, this practice reshapes the heart. It trains you not to turn away from suffering, but to open to it with courage and love. It makes compassion not just an emotion, but a habit, a way of being. Compassion is not only emotional, it is also practical. True compassion asks, what can I do to help? It moves you to act, even in small ways. It may mean listening deeply without judgment. It may mean offering resources or support. It may mean standing up against injustice. Compassion is love in action, and in action it heals not only others, but yourself. Because when you live with compassion, you live in alignment with your deepest nature. You are no longer consumed by self-centeredness. You are part of the great web of life, contributing to its healing. On a deeper level, compassion transforms suffering itself. Instead of seeing suffering as meaningless, compassion gives it purpose. Your own wounds become bridges to connect with others. The pain you endured becomes the source of your ability to comfort. Your struggles become the soil in which compassion grows. This is why some of the most compassionate people are those who have suffered deeply. They know the landscape of pain, and because they know it, they can guide others through it. Compassion also brings joy. At first, it may seem strange. How can turning towards suffering bring joy? But when you respond with compassion, your heart expands, and expansion is joy. When you help relieve even a little pain, you feel the warmth of connection, the fulfillment of love in action. Compassion does not drain you, it nourishes you because it connects you to the deepest truth of life, that we are here not only for ourselves, but for one another. The Buddha once said, as a mother would protect her only child at the risk of her own life, even so, let one cultivate a boundless heart toward all beings. This is the essence of compassion. It is fierce, tender, and limitless. It does not exclude, it does not grow tired. It is the natural state of the awakened heart. So ask yourself, how would your life change if compassion became your foundation? How would your relationships change if, instead of judgment, you offered understanding? How would the world change if, instead of indifference, we all turned towards suffering with love? The answer is clear. Life would become lighter, kinder, more human. Compassion is not weakness, it is the highest strength. It is the courage to face suffering without turning away, the wisdom to see beyond anger and fear, the love that heals what hatred destroys. To live with compassion is to live awake, to live with a heart that is vast enough to hold all of life. And once you awaken this compassion within yourself, life will never feel the same again. Equinimity, the unshakable balance of the awakened heart. If compassion is the trembling of the heart in the face of suffering, and loving kindness is the radiant wish for all beings to be happy, then equanimity is the steady ground on which both can stand. Without equanimity, loving kindness can become attachment, and compassion can turn into despair. Without balance, even the most beautiful qualities of the heart can be swept away by waves of emotion. This is why the Buddha taught upekkha, equanimity, as one of the highest perfections. It is the unshakable balance of the awakened heart, the calmness that remains steady in the midst of joy and sorrow, gain and loss, praise and blame. It is not indifference, but the deepest form of wisdom and love. To understand equanimity, you must first understand the nature of life. Life is full of dualities. You will experience joy and sadness, success and failure, health and sickness, love and loss. No one escapes these opposites. They are part of the fabric of existence. Yet most people are thrown endlessly between them, like leaves tossed in the wind. When joy comes, they cling desperately, fearing its end. When pain comes, they resist fiercely, unable to accept it. This constant clinging and resisting creates endless suffering. Equanimity is the ability to remain balanced in the face of these changes. It is the wisdom to embrace both joy and sorrow without being enslaved by either. Equanimity does not mean you stop feeling. You will still feel joy, still feel pain, still love, still grieve, but you no longer drown in them. You feel deeply, but you remain steady. You allow experiences to arise and pass, knowing that nothing is permanent. This steadiness is freedom. When joy comes, you savor it fully, but you do not cling, because you know it will pass. When sorrow comes, you feel it fully, but you do not despair, because you know it will pass. Equanimity is the deep peace of living in alignment with impermanence. The Buddha often spoke of the 8 worldly winds: gain and loss, praise and blame, success and failure, pleasure and pain. Most people are blown about constantly by these winds. A word of praise lifts them into pride, a word of criticism crushes them into despair. A moment of gain fills them with joy, a moment of loss fills them with anger. But the one who practices equanimity is like a great mountain, steady, unmoved by the winds. This does not mean the winds do not blow. It means the mountain does not collapse. The equanimous heart remains peaceful regardless of the changing circumstances of life. Equanimity also protects compassion. Without equanimity, compassion can become overwhelming. When you open your heart to the suffering of the world, it can feel endless, unbearable. You may drown in sorrow, feeling hopeless or helpless. But with equanimity, you can face suffering without being crushed by it. You see suffering clearly, you feel it, you respond with love, but you also remain steady. You know that suffering is part of life, that it has causes and conditions, that it will pass. You do what you can, but you do not lose yourself in despair. Equanimity makes compassion sustainable. It gives you the strength to love in a world full of pain without burning out. Equanimity also protects loving kindness. Without equanimity, love can become attachment, loving only those who please you, who give back, who meet your conditions. But equanimity expands love beyond conditions. It teaches you to love all beings equally, without preference or bias. This does not mean you feel the same affection for everyone. It means you hold everyone in the same wish for peace, without clinging to some and excluding others. Equanimity makes love vast, boundless, and unconditional. Practicing equanimity begins with awareness. Notice how easily you are thrown by the winds of life. How much of your happiness depends on praise, success, or comfort? How much of your suffering arises from criticism, failure, or discomfort? Equanimity asks you to see clearly that these opposites are inevitable. You cannot control them, but you can control your response. When praise comes, smile, but do not cling. When criticism comes, listen, but do not despair. When gain comes, use it wisely. When loss comes, accept it with grace. This balanced response is equanimity. Meditation is a powerful way to cultivate this balance. Sit quietly and observe your thoughts and feelings. Notice how they arise, change, and pass. Do not cling to pleasant sensations and do not resist unpleasant ones. Simply observe with calm awareness. Over time, you realize that the mind can remain steady even as experiences come and go. This realization deepens into daily life. You become less reactive, more peaceful, more free. Equanimity also grows through wisdom. When you truly understand impermanence, you no longer cling so desperately to what comes and goes. You savor joy without fear of its end. You endure pain without believing it is forever. You accept both as natural. Wisdom dissolves the illusion of permanence, and equanimity is the peace that arises from that dissolution. Equanimity is not coldness. Some fear that if they become equanimous, they will stop caring, stop loving, stop feeling. But equanimity is not detachment from life. It is deeper engagement. When you are no longer enslaved by craving and fear, you can love more freely because your love is not chained by clinging. You can act more wisely because your mind is not clouded by extremes. You can serve more effectively because you are not paralyzed by despair. Equanimity makes you more human, not less. The Buddha once said, "Just as the earth is not troubled by pure and impure things thrown upon it, so the mind of one who is equanimous is not disturbed by praise or blame." This is the essence of equanimity. It is not indifference, it is stability. It is not numbness, it is clarity. It is the strength to remain at peace in the midst of life's endless changes. Equanimity also transforms relationships. When you live without equanimity, relationships are full of clinging, jealousy, and fear. You cling to those you love, fearing their loss. You push away those you dislike, hardening your heart. But with equanimity, you love without clinging, and you release without hatred. You remain steady in love, steady in loss, steady in forgiveness. This steadiness makes relationships healthier, freer, more genuine. Equanimity also brings freedom in daily life. Without it, your happiness rises and falls with circumstances beyond your control, the opinion of others, the state of your finances, the behavior of loved ones. With it, your happiness no longer depends on these shifting conditions. It rests in something deeper, awareness itself, wisdom itself, peace itself. This is true freedom. So ask yourself, what would your life feel like if you were no longer tossed about by the winds of gain and loss, praise and blame, joy and sorrow? What would it feel like to remain steady in the midst of change, to love without fear, to serve without despair, to live without being enslaved by circumstances? The answer is simple. You would feel unshakable. You would feel free. Equanimity is the unshakable balance of the awakened heart. It is the calm mountain in the midst of storms, the steady flame in the midst of winds, the peaceful awareness in the midst of change. It does not remove life's challenges, but it transforms your relationship to them. With equanimity, you can face joy without clinging, pain without collapsing, love without fear, loss without despair. With equanimity, you can live fully, love deeply, and serve wisely without being broken by the inevitable changes of life. And once you live with this balance, once equanimity becomes your foundation, life will never feel the same again. The path of service, living for the benefit of all beings. The Buddha's path was never meant to be a private escape from the world. It was never about withdrawing into silence and leaving others behind. True awakening naturally expresses itself in the way you live, in the way you touch others, in the way your presence becomes a source of healing rather than harm. Buddhism teaches that wisdom and compassion are like two eyes. You cannot see clearly with only one. Wisdom reveals the truth of impermanence, no self, and interconnectedness. Compassion puts that truth into action. The path of service, or dana, generosity of heart, mind and action, is the natural flowering of awakening. It is living not just for yourself, but for the well-being of all beings. Most people live believing life is about accumulation, accumulating wealth, recognition, possessions, experiences. They ask, what can I get? What can I keep? How can I secure more for myself? Yet even when they succeed, they feel empty because accumulation without service is hollow. Generosity, on the other hand, reverses this equation. It shifts the question from what can I get to what can I give. And in giving, paradoxically, you discover fullness, because the heart expands when it gives. Joy grows when it is shared. Meaning deepens when life becomes about more than yourself. The Buddha placed generosity at the very foundation of the path. He taught that before wisdom, before meditation, before liberation, there must be generosity. Why? Because generosity loosens the grip of self-centeredness. It breaks the chains of greed and fear. It softens the heart, making it fertile for compassion. Generosity is not only about material gifts, it is about giving presence, patience, forgiveness, kindness, understanding. A smile can be generosity. A listening ear can be generosity. A moment of patience in anger can be generosity. To live generously is to live as if your very being is a gift to the world. The path of service does not mean you must change the whole world single-handedly. It means you change the world around you, moment by moment, through the way you live. You serve when you help a stranger with kindness. You serve when you comfort someone in pain. You serve when you care for the earth, knowing it sustains countless beings. You serve when you speak words that heal instead of harm. Each act of service, however small, ripples outward. You may never see how far it travels, but it does. Service also transforms suffering. When life feels heavy, when you are consumed by your own pain, turning outward to serve others can bring healing. The Buddha once said, if you light a lamp for someone else, it will also brighten your path. Service is like that lamp. When you lift another, you also lift yourself. When you help ease another's suffering, your own heart feels lighter. This is not a distraction from your own pain, it is a transformation of it. Your suffering becomes the doorway to empathy, your wounds become the source of your ability to comfort. True service arises from understanding interconnectedness. When you realize that all beings are part of the same web, you see that helping others is not separate from helping yourself. When the earth suffers, you suffer. When your community heals, you heal. When another being is lifted, the whole web is strengthened. Service is not charity, it is wisdom in action. It is the recognition that your well-being is inseparable from the well-being of others. Service also protects against the dangers of ego. Even on the spiritual path, ego can creep in. You may begin to feel proud of your wisdom, your meditation, your insight. But when you serve, ego softens. Service humbles you, reminding you that awakening is not about status, but about love. True service is selfless, not because the self disappears entirely, but because the self is no longer the center. Service shifts the focus outward to the greater good. The path of service also asks you to expand your circle of care. It is easy to serve those you love, those who are like you, those who give back. But the Buddha taught boundless compassion for friends, for strangers, even for enemies. This does not mean allowing harm, but it means refusing to let hatred limit your love. Service becomes boundless when it includes not only those who please you, but all beings without exception. Meditation on service can take the form of intention. Each morning you can pause and ask, how can I be of benefit today? How can my presence bring more peace? This intention changes the way you move through the day. It turns every action into an opportunity. Your work becomes service. Your words become service. Your silence becomes service. When the heart is oriented toward service, life itself becomes an offering. Service is not about grand gestures. It is about consistency. A kind word every day, a patient response in frustration, a gentle hand to someone in need. These acts may seem small, but they accumulate into a life of immense impact. The Buddha did not ask everyone to be heroes. He asked them to be kind, to live with integrity, to reduce harm, to increase peace. A life of service is built moment by moment, choice by choice. The beauty of service is that it is accessible to everyone. You may not have wealth to give, but you can give time, presence, attention. You may not be able to heal the world's suffering, but you can bring comfort to one being. You may not be able to change the whole earth, but you can care for the patch of earth beneath your feet. Service is not limited by status or resources, it is only limited by the heart. Service also brings freedom. Self-centeredness is heavy. It isolates you, narrows your vision, and makes every problem feel overwhelming. But when you shift into service, the burden lightens. Your problems do not disappear, but they lose their absolute grip. You see that life is not just about you, and in that shift, your suffering becomes smaller, your joy greater. Service is liberation from the prison of self. The Buddha once said, "If beings knew, as I know, the results of giving and sharing, they would not eat without having given." He knew that service was not just kindness, it was wisdom. Because in giving, you do not lose, you gain. In serving, you do not diminish, you expand. In helping others, you do not fall behind, you walk the path more deeply. So ask yourself, what kind of life do you want to live? A life of accumulation, always chasing more, always guarding what you have. Or a life of service, where your presence becomes a blessing, your actions a source of healing, your love a gift to the world. The first path may bring temporary pleasures, but the second path brings lasting peace. Because when your life is lived for others, you are never empty, you are always full. The path of service is the natural flowering of awakening. It is wisdom made visible, compassion made tangible, love made real. It is living not just for yourself, but for the benefit of all beings. And once you live this way, where every breath, every step, every word becomes an offering, life will never feel the same again. We have traveled together through 25 lessons, each one like a lantern placed along a dark path, guiding us deeper into the heart of wisdom. From the truth that happiness is already here, to the courage of letting go, to the peace of silence, to the boundless love of compassion, to the balance of equanimity, and finally to the great flowering of service. Every lesson has pointed to the same simple, radiant truth. The life you long for is not somewhere else. It is here. The freedom you seek is not hidden in some distant future. It is within you, waiting to be remembered. Think back on what you have heard. You have learned that suffering arises when we cling, when we resist, when we believe in illusions of permanence and separateness. You have seen that peace is possible when you return to presence, when you recognize impermanence, when you embrace the truth that you are not a fixed self, but a flowing process of awareness. You have walked through gratitude, compassion, mindfulness, loving kindness, service, and balance, each one not as abstract ideals but as living practices, seeds you can plant in your daily life. The Buddha never asked us to blindly believe. He invited us to look deeply, to test these truths in the laboratory of our own lives. If you pause, if you breathe, if you watch your thoughts arise and pass, you will see for yourself that nothing is permanent, that suffering arises from clinging, that peace arises from letting go. If you live with mindfulness, even for a few breaths, you will feel the richness of this moment. If you extend kindness, even to one person, you will feel the expansion of your own heart. If you serve, even in a small way, you will taste the joy of connection. These are not distant promises. They are truths available here and now, in the life you are already living. Remember, awakening is not about becoming someone else. It is about uncovering what has always been true. Beneath your fears, beneath your cravings, beneath your endless thoughts, there is already a quiet awareness, already a spacious freedom, already a luminous heart. You do not need to chase it, you need only to return to it. Each lesson you have heard is a doorway back home. Home to the truth that happiness is not found in more, but in enough. Home to the truth that letting go is not loss, but liberation. Home to the truth that silence is not emptiness, but fullness. Home to the truth that love is not scarce, but infinite. Home to the truth that freedom is not in controlling life, but in flowing with it. And this home is always here. It has never left you. You may have wandered in distractions, in comparisons, in fears, in illusions, but the path back is as simple as a single breath. Pause, breathe, feel the present moment. Here is peace. Here is freedom. Here is life, as it truly is. As you move forward from this moment, do not treat these lessons as heavy burdens to remember, but as gentle companions to walk with you. Let them live in your breath, in your steps, in your choices. When you feel lost, return to presence. When you feel restless, remember impermanence. When you feel hard, soften into compassion. When you feel overwhelmed, steady yourself with equanimity. When you feel empty, fill yourself by serving others. Each lesson is a refuge, a reminder, a return. Above all, remember this: you are not broken, you are not lacking, you are not too late. The seeds of awakening are already within you. Every breath you take is a chance to water them. Every step you take is a chance to walk in freedom. Every act of kindness is a chance to live in love. You do not need to wait for another life, another time, another chance. This life, this moment, is your chance. The Buddha once said, "Peace comes from within. Do not seek it without." And so we close where we began, with the simple, radiant truth that everything you seek is already here. Your task is not to chase it, but to remember it, to live it, to embody it. May you live with mindfulness in each moment. May you live with kindness in each heart you meet. May you live with balance in every storm. May you live with love that knows no boundaries. May you live with freedom that cannot be taken away. And may you, in living this way, discover that life itself was never against you, never empty, never meaningless. It was always inviting you home. Home to yourself, home to peace, home to freedom.